Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It is April the 2nd of 2025. I'm Nick, here with Quinn. We've got manga to talk about today, and I'm a little loopy, so we'll see how that goes today.
Now, Nick, why are you loopy? Have you gone under some sort of sillification, perhaps?
No, I'm just a little bleary-headed for very mundane and stupid reasons. Something, Nick, you're in your mid-30s and you shouldn't eat that much salt in one go. But I did, and so now I've got a very tiny headache that I'm dealing with. I'm coming out of it because I did a smart thing and was like, well, I should eat some fruit, and so I grabbed a nectarine and chowed that down before we started.
Oh, all right. Well, that's a good thing. You know, you're chewing on that nectarine. You're getting back into your full fighting spirit. This is going to be like your equivalent of a shonen power up, or in New Exorcist terms, a weekly power up that you've gotten because you're so cool.
That would be an interesting kids series. Just have someone who gets shonen power ups by just making healthy life choices. So
It would
be like the very Popeye kind of equivalent of eat vegetables and
I think what would add an extra level to it is you mentioned a kids series. I don't think we do a kids series. We're gonna do a series for us, for people our age, so that we understand. It's like you don't understand. Ryu or whatever the fuck we're naming our character. He has a lot of vitamins and he goes to bed by 10 because otherwise he's a fucking mess. Okay. And that's his shonen power up. He gets real strong after that. It's very heroic.
I need to fix my sleep schedule.
All right, well, let's
sleep schedule. So
let's start by fixing it. So we're gonna start right into the recap of Weekly Manga Recap. Right. Let's just dig right into it, and then we'll get on out of here early, and everyone gets to fix their sleep schedule.
All right, we'll be responsible adults today. That's what we'll call it, responsible adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll have really big bold text with like stars in the letters and stuff.
Yeah, so but there's like
exclamation points.
But there's a capybara who talks, and she has giant boobs for some reason. Doesn't quite really anatomically make sense, but we're trying to, it's the 4 quadrants thing. You got to get, we need to make sure the 35 plus female audience has a reason to read this series, and the capybara with the boobs somehow it's what's getting them in. It's what would get me into reading it. I'm a 35 plus woman.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you.
There we go. There we go.
Fundamental level, I guess.
All right,
Ichi the Witch. Yeah, it's 28th Hunt, Unknown Emotions. Last time we learned that the princess is Gokuraku. Is his sister, in particular his older sister, even though he is seemingly twice her height, and as she is kind of like, being, a nosy older sister with him and like pinching his cheeks and stuff. God, her hands are tiny compared to this monster of a man. So she, says like, why are you always coming home without warning? She's asking him like if he's eating properly. He's like, oh yeah, I mean lizards and bats and stuff. It's protein, right?
I mean, that is honestly quite a lot of protein. But like just pure bat heads, I have to assume there's a lot of protein in that. Is there a lot of protein in the brain? Carry on. I'm going to look this up.
Okay. So, but she, stops, getting on Gokuraku's case because she realizes he's healthy, he's safe. And then she's like, who's this person towards Ichi? And Gokuraku refers to him as a collaborator, and she concludes like, "Oh my gosh, you've got a friend, Gokuraku!" And she's really, really excited about this. It's like she's like getting tea ready and stuff, and starts running around. And then Ichi looks at Gokuraku and says, "I mean, are we friends?" And he says, "I mean, I don't know." And she says, "I can tell you. Have you guys played together?" And they reflect on the time that they gutted the fish together. I mean, I guess kind of we have. Have you eaten together? Well, they did, roast it up. Yeah, I guess we have. Have you talked about your dreams together? Well, he did, ask Ichi to help him stop Bakugami. And they're like, yeah, I mean, we've talked about things we want to do. And she's like, then you guys are friends. But she's very, very happy.
So excited. This girl's so sweet.
And she reflects on when she and Kokuraku were younger, and how he was, let's say neurodivergent, because he didn't really want to play with kids his age. He was just really, really excited to tinker with magic items and stuff. And now we see that, he's wearing them all the time and has them bonded with his spine? ? So that continued, certainly. And she says, yeah, I knew that he was having a lot of fun doing that, so it wasn't all that bad. But, he didn't end up with no friends as a result, unfortunately. Ichi says, I don't really know what that's about, all this friend stuff, but I understand. Family? I made a new family just recently. And the princess says, you made a family? Yes! Her name is Descarus. She is mean and snarky and arrogant and loves to trick people. What a great family.
I love that based on the way he says it, Kokuraku's like, sounds like you got a rough family, but no one's concerned. Everyone's like, all right. Have fun with that family, I guess. Doesn't sound like it's too fun, but you do you.
Although Ichi does say that Kumugi probably counts as a friend. At least he understands that much.
Yes.
But the three of them, talk animatedly while they're having tea together, and the princess is really, really happy with it. And as they are doing this, she also brings out all of these mementos, these family records. And Ichi notices in one of the pictures, it's their mother. And so the princess says, yeah, she was really, really kind and really beautiful. And she died 10 years ago. Very casual, big smile on her face. And of course, Kokuraku is not looking too happy about this.
Mm-hmm.
Ichi is apologetic and is like, I'm sorry that, that's happened. And the princess says, it's okay. That was in the past. And mother wouldn't be happy if I were sad. And thanks to Lord Bakugami, I could get over her death. And now I'm not sad about it in the least. Yeah, it's great.
No, it's going great, Nick. She's doing fine.
Gokuraku slams his cup down and stalks over to the window. But before he can leave, his sister says, hey, make sure you come to the ceremony in 3 days because I'm going to pray to Lord Bakugami on behalf of the country, and I'd like it if you were there. And Gokuraku's like, a ceremony, huh? And a ceremony for what? And she says, the 10-year anniversary of Lord Bakugami's arrival. What else? Yeah, I'll be there. Ichi hustles after Gokuraku too, but before they leave, he says, hey, that's not what the anniversary is. 3 days from now is the anniversary of 10 years since our mother died. And then he leaves without another word. Ichi goes with him, and when they're alone together, he gives more context of the flashback that we saw from his perspective, which is that, his sister used to cry over everything. Whenever she was very sensitive, she would, dig little graves for tiny animals that she found while they were out together. But as a result of being so sad, when she was sad, she would also really, really, really happy. And Kokuraku says she was spacey, kind of spoiled, but kinder than anyone. And she loved mother more than anyone in the world. And in regards to, being like, I'm not sad, it's all totally fine, he says, she is not the kind of person who would say that crap. What the hell does she mean she's not sad in the least? Doesn't she get how empty that is? What Bakugami takes isn't people's sadness. It's nothing that cute. It sucks out your ability to be sad. There's no way that thing is a god. I made a vow when I grafted these magic items into myself that I would punch that bastard magic in the face and steal my sister's emotions back. I'll do whatever it takes to do it. And then he threatens Ichi because he doesn't understand how friendship works. He says if Ichi tries to back out now, he'll kill him.
It is an interesting moment because I was like, so this is the moment that I, as the reader, am meant to like really empathize with Gokuraku. Like it's, this is the moment where we see his pain and anguish. We find out why it exists and everything. And then his next move is to be like, and if you don't do it, I'll kill you. And I'm like, interesting, but thankfully not addressed. Not really like Ichi's just like, yeah, I get it, dude. Nope. Like you got to be real with what you want, respect.
Ichi doesn't seem to really care when people threaten him in general anyway. He's the ideal person to be, addressed in this manner.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't speak to Descarus this way, but you could speak to Ichi this way.
Yeah, you could speak to Kamugi this way and it'd work, but it wouldn't be for good reasons. She'd just be, really scared and frightened. Ichi says, I've only lived for myself for my entire life. I've never lived for anyone else. Doing stuff for the sake of others is not something I really understand. But so this is the first time I've ever felt like this. Right now, I want to do something for you. I want to help you. So use me as much as you need, Gokuraku. And he's very bright-eyed and enthusiastic when he says this. Okay, guys, come on, calm down.
Use him however much you need. Come on. That is not a platonic line you say to your friends. I know it is in this context. We're not hinting at anything else, I presume. But like, come on. Like you can write a lot of fan fiction out of those like 2 panels basically.
Ichi Gokuraku tag's gonna explode within a week, certainly.
Who is the bottom?
I mean, I have to imagine that most people think that the bottom is Ichi. Like,
I would assume it's Gokuraku. I think Gokuraku thinks he's a top, and then in the moment, he's not really.
I know, but he's the taller one.
Okay.
Therefore.
I mean, that's fair. That is how the logic goes.
That's how a lot of the yaoi pairings get.
Is it? I honestly, I'm not super familiar with.
Remember that? You remember that one awful series we had to read where there was a warning whenever?
Yeah. I remember. What was it? Love.
I don't care.
I remember it was Corrido Prime
Presents. That's the most important part of the title.
Something. Love Bet. Love a hunky. Love
a hunky love.
hunky love. Love stage. That's it. Okay. Yeah, we got it. Yes. So you know what? Maybe that's what'll happen next chapter. There'll be like a slight warning. It's like, hey, last chapter, hosts of a podcast may have insinuated something about our characters. We want you to know that Gokuraku is taller and thus is the top. So if you're uncomfortable reading this series from here, we do understand.
Just a lot of height comparisons between Ichi and Gokuraku in the next chapter. They're constantly like, they've got like height markers next to them the whole time. Gokuraku is like, 3 times the size of Ichi, but it's like 6 foot versus 5'11".
Yeah, he's got yaoi hands basically. Yeah, I hope next chapter ratchets up the homosexual tension even higher. I hope there's a lot of like, cover my rear, I'm watching your rear, and stuff like that, childish things. You could see in a Team Police of some sort back in the day, but for us, we can appreciate it because we're enlightened.
I mean, I'm not really looking forward to that at all.
Oh, okay, then I hope it's a normal chapter then.
Not like hating on that or anything, but I more have concerns about, like the way the story that's going to unfold and...
Nick, do you ever wish that the manga could react more to our tangents? Like the next chapter of like
Sometimes.
Blue Box for some reasons, like, all right, well, we'll include La Resistance from WWE in the mid 2000s because it's been brought up so much or whatever, like we need to, you know, uh, Hina-Ten's gonna be like, hey, you ever heard about 3 Minutes? That was a group in WWE whose entire gimmick was that 3 minutes was an interval of time that existed and could be referenced.
Unbelievably, they never won the tag titles.
Yeah, tragic.
But La Resistance did. You know,
Wow.
who would show up for that? Like, just get Sylvain Grenier. It's like, oh man, it's you, not Rene Dupree or Rob Conway. Wow.
I was gonna say, only one I could still name to this point is Rob Conway. Rene Dupree would have taken me a moment to get to.
Mm. Oh boy.
All right. Well, we've talked about great athletes, Nick. So perhaps it's time we talk about some great ones in training in Blue Box.
But Blue Box, it's chapter 190. No such thing as fate. There was a bit of a talk in the last chapter, imagining if Taiki had gone into basketball, and we get more of that like alternate reality through almost like the entirety of this chapter.
Yes.
Instead of going back into Chinatsu's basketball game. So there's like a very quick thing of like, oh, from the moment Taiki was born and stuff, and people watching him play with a ball and things, and then his mother asking like, hey, you want to like try learning basketball? And Taiki imagines like, what if I had taken a different path? And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll play basketball. And so he shows up at the same youth club that Chinatsu and Yumika are in, and he's like, I am Taiki! Very loud child.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, okay, Taiki, quiet down. But, as he tries to play, there's, there's a silly thing where he goes for a layup and goes right off the bottom of the backboard, which I'm sure has happened to every basketball player when they're starting off at some point. But it gets to a point where, like, Chinatsu rushes to the gym, and Taiki, in typical fashion for him, is there before anyone else. He's trying to practice that layup, and only succeeding in hitting himself in the head. Which, I appreciate that detail. I'm not sure if this is Taiki's imagination or someone else's. I think it's Taiki's, but I appreciate that he's like, if I had gone into basketball, I would have embarrassed myself constantly when I was starting off. But there's a cute moment where Chinatsu is like, hey, so, this is something Yumika taught me, which is you gotta, like, imagine yourself flying up, and then you just kind of, you keep on practicing, and she's lifting her arm to demonstrate it until your body moves naturally. And if you do that, you'll be able to do it before you know it. And Taiki, like, starts waving his hand while she's waving her hand, so the two of them are just waving their hands at each other while they're quote-unquote practicing layup motions, while he calls her his senpai because, she's a year older than him. And that, goes on with like, oh, they're hanging out and stuff, and someone's like, oh, were you guys having a secret rendezvous? Because they're children. And he's like, I don't have any romantic feelings for my senpai. I have deference.
What the fuck are these children like watching? Like fucking Bluey on steroids? Like where are these words coming from?
Today's word of the day is anti-disestablishmentarianism.
I assume they do the song still.
It's like really complex vocabulary words. Senator!
Well, to be fair, children should know what a senator is.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So, but it gets to a point where, like, Taiki's mom says, like, hey, are you going to go to practice? And he kind of is hesitant about it. And Taiki starts to, like, get that thing that he claimed that he would when he was talking to Chinatsu about this, where he starts to get tunnel vision. He's not really aware of people around him because he's just making a dash for the basket. But there's another thing that happens, which is that because Taiki is improving, another player on the team gets benched in his place and is really upset about it. And after that, like, that seems to have a really bad effect on Taiki, because like someone got upset because I was playing this, so decides that he doesn't really want to do it. And when they get into the next school, he is moved by a really bad but very effective drama performance of someone being like, "You need to help us save the drama club." Someone's like pretending to die in another student's arms. It's like, well, that would get a lot of attention, certainly.
Sure, yeah.
So he's, drawn into this. And so at the same time that Yumika and Chinatsu are handing out flyers trying to recruit people for basketball, Taiki instead gets into the drama club. And I like that he's, not an actor, seemingly. It looks like he's helping with the sets and stuff, which is a very important position in the drama club. But because of that, he's no longer in an athletic club, and Chinatsu still is. And so their paths diverge, which takes, of course, a tragic turn where, because Taiki doesn't go to the gym the day that Chinatsu, learns that she's going to have to go abroad, she just goes abroad.
Yep.
And so that person that, for this version of Taiki, just kind of knew her in the basketball club, it's like, oh, you just kind of like hear secondhand about it. It's like, oh, that's sort of it. And everyone moves on. Chinatsu goes to America. Nagisa and the rest of the basketball club. Importantly, Yumika's not there because Taiki's presence had no impact on that whole thing. They just kind of move on as a team without her. And Taiki is, doing drama club stuff, presumably. But the conclusion that we come away from that is there is no such thing as fate. You don't have a destined partner. There's no predetermined ending. It's just a romantic name given to coincidence after the fact. All right, Taiki. What philosophy class have you been taking in this semester exactly? But now we finally cut back into the actual world where Chinatsu and the rest of Ame are doing their best as Taiki's reflecting on things, which is like, hey, what's ahead of us hasn't been decided by fate.
Yes.
And putting it the other way around, your fate is in your own hands. We can choose the kind of future that we want to have. Ame is up at this point in the second quarter, so things are going okay thus far. But as he is watching the game, Taiki reflects on, the path that he's had in Batman to this point. And he thinks the path that I'm about to take is, and then trails off. And speaking of Batman, Hyodo and Akari are being met by the Yusa brothers, both Taiki's rival Yusa and younger brother Haruto. And Yoda's like, well, I guess that you guys, want lessons no matter what because you really want to get to nationals. And Haruto says, I'm definitely going to nationals in first place, even if I have to take a certain someone down to get there. And Taiki is the person seemingly being spoken of in this moment. Well, Taiki, you're the Haru now, so watch out.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a little sad to see the cyclical nature of this. It's like in this moment that Taiki starts to, reevaluate everything that's going on in his life and what place Batman kind of has for him going forward. He is very quickly becoming Haru, and I think it's going to end very similar to Haru as well. But it's good. This is an important chapter, I think, for Taiki to start really coming to terms with what, if anything, place Badminton's still going to have in his life. I assume he's not going to quit, but I imagine, he might try really hard and realize he's not quite good enough for it. Like it's notable that, he thinks about the path he's going to be on after a montage of his sort of most crushing defeats.
Yeah. It's interesting that, Haru says that I kind of had my moment of reckoning, and it feels like, Chinatsu's going to have her moment of reckoning. But Chinatsu, like, we know in her mind, she's like, this is going to be it for me in basketball. Once, this high school tournament's done, she's like, she's not going to keep on doing it. She already has, come to terms with that. So it'll be interesting to see if instead the moment of reckoning that happens from this game is just Taiki.
Yeah.
Is the one who has it. If maybe seeing this helps to give him some more perspective and let him make that decision ahead of time. If, he'll be like, hey, I've got one more year of Batman after this. And, we'll start maybe making preparations for what's coming after that. And it'll also be interesting because, if Chinatsu is finishing up her basketball career, then, she's also going to be finishing up her high school career, a couple months after this. So is she going to be, like going to a university in Japan? Presumably, you would think. Or what's going to happen with that, and how is that going to, of course, affect her relationship with Taiki?
Yeah.
And so there's a whole lot going on with this game in terms of how it feels like it's being spun out into the main characters' lives and how they're looking at what the road ahead is. And that's interesting.
Yeah, very much so.
Sports manga, right?
Sports manga. Now, Nick... we might just want to skip over Chainsaw Man. Not a whole ton happened this week. It's kind of just like about Fami and some stuff. So I don't know if we want to.
Well, yeah.
We kind of want to like rush towards Astro Royale. So I think that's what the audience is waiting for.
Chapter 198. It's Fami. Oh wow. I guess Fami's going to appear in this chapter.
Yeah.
Yes. So the exchange student who's probably the Death Devil, wink, has been chopped to bits by Fake Saw Man. And so she goes, my shirt pocket. Check my pocket. There's 2,000 yen in my wallet. You can have it. It's like $20.
I like based Fake Chainsaw Man who's like, money is worthless. Its value is merely an illusion performed by the government.
Which really, really upsets the exchange student. Like, look, I don't care about government stuff. I've got to save mankind. And the fake Saw Man says, through death? Your so-called salvation means slaughtering all mankind. It means eliminating human suffering and anger through death, right? The Justice Devil and I see right through you. Since you're a devil, you probably don't know why people choose to live on in this hellish world. Just like start playing the Star Spangled Banner behind this. I'll tell you why. It's because the world's full of hope. Chainsaw Man came from hell to protect mankind's hope, to drag beings like you back to hell. But just and righteous thoughts mean nothing to you, do they, Death Devil? I guess it's the Death Devil, yeah, like we've been saying, right? It's the Death Devil. Okay, all right. So, the head of the exchange
I kind of stopped after this point in the chapter. It's like, I get it. He's going to talk to the Death Devil. Fami shows up. Yeah. Fair enough. Kind of all. I hope I don't turn the page in something crazy. Well, actually, it takes a little bit longer. But
it takes a little bit longer. Fortunately, the exchange student's body comes back together like it did the last chapter. How did this happen? There was no one around for her to drain the life out of. But then we look down and see that she drained the life from some ants, which means that she is the best devil. So good for her killing those ants. And she says, I am she who absorbs life, she who saves people from their suffering via death. I am one of the 4 horsemen feared by humans and devils alike. Pleased to make your acquaintance. My name is Famine Devil. Please call me Fami. And the fake Chainsaw Man goes, what? Fami? And Fami says, yes, I know all your moves for real this third time's a charm. And she says, I know the reach of your arm swings. And she's just going to go on with her chuny battle analysis. And he says, hold on. You saying you're not the Death Devil? What? The Death Devil is my... And then a voice declares, falling. And both Fami and the Fake Saw Man are crushed into the ground as the falling devil appears. Walks up and asks a figure posing on the rooftop of the school building. May I take your order? And we cut up to, well, they can't both be Fami. What's going on?
Nick, there could be 2 Famis in the world, okay? I don't know why we're making such a big deal about this.
The one who we have known as Fami up to this point is posing there, and she just issues chef's choice. And for kind of no reason, we cut around to a bunch of different places as the Falling Devil chops a bunch of heads off of people. And also a giraffe.
And a giraffe, yeah.
A giraffe also lays out their heads as garnish with the bodies of real Fami and the fake Sawman. I can't really tell who's talking. I think it's the fake Sawman who looks up at fake Fami and says, "You're the Death Devil!" And fake Fami looks down at real Fami and says, "I'm sorry, I used your name." Oh. And so Fami says, like, "Look, if you feel anything for mankind, you've got to die." And fake Fami undoes her belt and lifts up her skirt and reveals that she just has this yawning, gaping gap all the way up her torso. And she says, "I dispose of all my organs, but I still couldn't die." The end of the chapter. So this has some implications, I guess, about a lot of things that have happened recently, maybe.
Starts to make a little bit more sense why Fami just had the guillotine devil kind of on speed dial.
I assume that she just, used it in order to, chop the roots off of carrots,
Honestly, that might still be the reason. She's like, "Oh yeah, I guess you could use this to kill people too, but I usually use it to slice vegetables."
Who knows? That Mr. Guillotine designed it in order to, chop up radishes. So it's like that thing there where you just like smack the top of it and it really quickly slices, like mandolin slices it. Yeah, it's just on a very large scale. You just have to be very careful with it.
Yeah. There's been a lot of cool retrospective kind of I don't want to say discoveries, but just like, here's something. People have pointed out that, like, oh, quote unquote, Fami has always had her head tilted like it's been, hung. Like it was, in a noose and hung. And the actual Famine Devil had a nervous habit of, like, biting her fingers and stuff like that. And there's been some people who've been like, oh, actually, the earrings that Fami wears, they aren't Chainsaw Man ripcords. They're scales, like the scales of justice and death and stuff. I don't know how much of these I'm like 100% prescribing to. I think the Guillotine Devil is like a fun detail to look back on. But it's definitely a pretty significant shakeup of things.
The implication definitely seems to be that seemingly no one knew about this. Because, of course, we saw Yoshida and Himeko trying to, win Fami's favor against the Death Devil. And she was like, "Yeah, no, we're going to go do a school festival preparation." So I'm sure that they wouldn't have tried to do that if they had known that she was the Death Devil, because they would have been like, "We need to kill you instead." A lot of things, though, could be looked at differently because of this. And I haven't had a chance to look back on a lot of stuff because I've been busy, but sure. I would be interested to look back on some chapters.
There are some funny moments. Someone pointed out recently that there's a scene of Yoshida Fumiko, I think is her name, the hand job in the movie theater lady, and Fami sitting on a bench, and Yoshida's like, "The Death Devil's gonna be here any day now," and like it's very funny as like Fami just no sell sitting right next to him. I think the thing I'm actually most excited about is just to kind of actually understand, presumably, a motivation for Fami, death, whatever we want to call her, going forward. I'm not, this is a very Fujimoto way to end a chapter, which is like, I can't die. Also, here's me lifting up my skirt for you. And you're like, yeah, dog, that's what he does. But I am legitimately very excited to hopefully hear some kind of logic to what's like been going on with some of these characters. It's a cool.
Why has the Death Devil deigned to, help Asa save Chainsaw Man before? What's her motivation there? It's gonna be interesting to see any kind of explanation come from this. But I do like just some of the little things. Like some people have even pointed out, I was like, huh, I wonder if it was just foreshadowing when, they came and just her friends came and picked her bodily up. If that was like, oh, well, she doesn't have any organs inside of her, so she's really light and easy to pick up. Yeah, this is interesting, and I do really look forward to kind of looking back on it. I also like that it makes sense that of the Death Devil's siblings, no one would remember her because the War Devil Yoru, has only just recently come back, and the Control Devil Nayuta just came back from Resurrection like a year ago. So they, haven't seen the Death Devil since they came back on into Earth. So real Fami is the only one who would have recognized her because of those conditions. So she just, got to get away with just lying to people because Fami wasn't around.
What you gotta do? Sucks to suck. All right, Nick. Dandadan.
Dandadan.
Chapter 188, Okurun and Kinta. And that's how we open.
We had to do this.
The chapter opens with those two characters running as they are being chased. One by an alien and the other by their former bully, I guess current bully. I don't know what to say. I believe his name's Hase. I had to look this up because it is not said anywhere in this chapter, I believe. But I believe his name is Hase. Who has sort of, I forget the name that this demon has, but you see them a lot in like Japanese media who like, they're like walking around, or I guess Asian media in general, I shouldn't say Japanese media, but like they walk around on like wheels that like kind of float through the sky, stuff like that. They're being attacked. Okurun manages to not die thanks to some airbag cushions in his forearm that I presume Kinta also helped him build. And he's basically like, hey, we can't just win with airbags. And Kinta's like, just draw the enemy away. We don't have time for this. Hase de-transforms because it is, as he says it, crazy exhausting. And it'd be nice if it didn't wear on my feet. His pants quite literally like singed up to like the knee almost at this point. Mm-hmm. And he is complaining about the alien saying, hey, quit zipping around. You're getting in my way. The alien just notes that this suit that they are in is very hard to use. Hase is like, hey, are you listening to me? We're after the same thing, right? Stealing Takakura's abilities. But the thing is, I don't give a shit about stealing his abilities. You can take them. I just want to kick the shit out of Takakura. And he transforms again and says, don't get in my way, numbnuts. Do it and you're dead meat. It's very funny because the alien just never responds. Just no sells this fucking dork-ass loser kid the whole time. Kinta takes notice that they've stopped for a moment and uses this opportunity to put the memory metal on everybody. He puts some on Okurun and gives him like, I don't know the name of the robot, but he basically just has like a chassis. His like head can like descend into the chassis and then boots. The rest of his body is completely exposed at this point.
He reminds me of Wash from My Hero Academia in terms of how clunky he is.
Yeah. Kinta notes that he put sort of like jetpacks in the back and pile bunkers on the legs. And Okurun's like, well, wait, what about you? And he says, me, it goes without saying, my suit, ka-chong, will be the great Kinta. And Okurun is understandably like, hey, dude, can I get some of that? Because you have a lot of armor, and like, my whole ass abdomen's exposed here. But Kinta just says that there's only so much nanoskin, so quit complaining. The alien and Hase start attacking again. They're not going to wait anymore. But Okarun manages to block an attack, take it with his new chest robot cavity, and he's like, "Oh, that didn't hurt at all." Kenta goes, "Yes, you see how it is? My mighty creative power. Since the last Great War, I've thought deeply about how to improve the Great Kenta. The Great Kenta is truly badass and powerful, but it is ridiculously weak when hit. So I walked around every day carrying a paperweight and forced my body to become familiar with the hardness of steel." And Okarun goes, "Oh, so that's why this thing is so heavy and hard to move in." Kenta's like, "What do you mean?"
What the fuck did you just say?
Although now that you say it, this is, when you're a big robot, you never really notice it, but now that it's my size, this is kind of just like, wham, just immediately gets like kicked in the face and sent flying. So we spend the rest of the chapter focusing on the alien and Okarun. And Okarun is understandably like, "Why are you attacking me?" And they respond, "You stole everything from me." He's kind of like a level of like, "I don't even know who you are, though." He just knows them as an alien. So he's like, "You stole my family jewel first." Like, "You stole my reason for living, and they destroyed my planet. And I joined them so I could kill their emperor." And this person served Haster, the enemy from the big space globalist arc that we had for us, not that long ago, but I think in actual story, probably several years ago at this point. But this person, whatever happened to them, presumably this is the individual that Saint Germain recruited and had a suit kind of similar to Vimola's, basically saying like, "Hey, you can't understand the pain that I've gone through." And Okarun's like, "That doesn't matter to me." And sort of jump headbutts into them. He can still do his headbutt now that he has a giant suit of armor around him. Turns, shoots off with his boots, knocks him away, and just says, "Hey, stop this. I'm not your enemy." But the alien responds, "My goal right now is to kill you." And then they finish their sentence over an image of a presumably husband and wife embracing a kiss in a flower field, and says, "And then die myself." So I guess we're going to get a flashback for this individual soon.
Yeah. It seems as though they are probably one of the many, many races that the Kerr, conquered. So maybe he has a self-contained story, maybe not. In any case, he seems like he probably has a bit more of a noble edge to him than Hase does. So if you are, if I were going to place bets on which of the, foot soldiers becomes part of Team Dandadan at the end of this, he's got a lot more chips on him than Hase does right now. So.
I will say, I don't think either of these characters are going to be like full.
Probably not, but
I think what might happen here is I think that this individual, we don't know their name yet, I think they will be allowed to show up to the feast afterwards. After every Dandadan arc, there's a big meal. She'll be allowed to be there. But I think Hase will be looking in from afar. I do see a potential face turn for that character, but a slow burn kind. He's a kid. I assume they're eventually just going to be like, you can get over being angry at this dude who you have no reason to really hate.
They need to start showing some redeemable qualities first, but yeah, I get your point.
I think, it looks they've already broken off into two groups, so I assume maybe fighting Kenta and seeing that he gets his shit pushed in by someone kind of even more pathetic than Okarun might be enough for him to be like, maybe I'm fucking up.
Maybe I just suck.
Yeah, maybe I'm fucking up.
Yeah, I had completely forgotten that, we kind of had to do this whole thing. I forgot that these fights began with Okarun and Kenta breaking off from Ira. I just totally forgot that happened in the midst of the really exciting basketball battle where we learned about her abilities and everything. So when we came back to this and the chapter opened, I was like, oh, right.
It's going to be real wild when we move to the next part and we're following Momo and their group, which I presume is also going to immediately jump into tension and high stakes drama. And it's going to be like, oh, right, there were a lot of moving pieces. And then we're just going to sit there the entire time being like, where's Gigi? What's Gigi doing?
Are we?
Nick, how dare you? Everyone loves Gigi.
All right, so Kaiju number 8, chapter 124. We get a flashback in this one where we learned that, as it turns out, Kikoru has compatibility with 4 of the numbers weapons. In addition to number 4, she's got aptitude with number 1, 2, and 7, which, of course, people are like, well, that's unprecedented that she can do that. That's crazy. But scar-faced guy that shows up a whole lot says, like, okay, well, we need to report this to the upper brass so that, we can proceed with caution in terms of this. But Kikoru at that point stands up from the monitoring table that she's on, and she says, no, don't let this leak to anyone, because this could be the key to defeating number 9. We need to make sure that no one can leak this intel. So she looks to Narumi and says, teach me how to use Kaiju number 1. And so she's got the number 1 eyes now, as we saw in the last chapter, and everyone is reacting like, "What the hell? You can use weapon number 1?" And Narumi says like, "Well, hey, you taught Kafka Hibino modified combat techniques in secret, so this is my ace in the hole, so we can beat number 9." And he explains that Retina 0001 is the embodiment of number 1's countless eyes, and it can share its field of vision with the wearer. And the same goes for the spares that we have stored for the repair of Numbers Weapon 1, which Kikoru basically was given like an extra set of contacts that linked up with Narumi's. So her vision has been shared with Narumi this whole time, meaning that all the stuff that he has observed about number 9 and now the Daikaiju's movements, she has to work with as well. So Narumi encourages her, finish what you started that day. And we get a very cool looking, like a page and a half spread of Kikoru posing dramatically in front of the Daikaiju as she stares it down, and it's looking back at her. But Kikoru is only concerned about the fact that she knows her father is still inside of this thing. So she calls over to Kafka and says, like, hey, I'm going to send your fist to the core, so make sure that you shatter it. We get another flashback to Kikoru, reacting to her father having been kidnapped and killed, basically. Very, very ugly cry face that she is making. All sorts of liquid coming out of every orifice of her face as she declares, I'll mourn him when the defense force neutralizes that creature once and for all. I'll be sad when we're done, basically. So Kafka gets all set, pounds his fist together and says, let's do it. Let's free the Director General Shinomiya. And so they get set to go, himself and Kikoru in a united front against the number 9 and Meireki period Daikaiju. Neutralization operation begins now. A year into the fight. It begins now. So here we go.
I tried not to even think about it when I saw it. I was like, fuck off.
They both launch ahead. Kafka nearly gets hit by one of those like bisecting beam things, but Kikoru provides covering fire to him. She's using number 1's weapons in order to kind of guide their attacks together. And she's like, I need to figure out the origin point of the attacks so that we can locate the core. While she's focusing so hard on the Daikaiju, its tail breaks through a bunch of rubble like right next to her and does something. I think that she manages to fly away from it, but it's hard to tell because we sort of see her turning towards the tail and then immediately cut away before we see the after effects of that to Mina, who gets in touch with the operator Okanogi to say, I have a favor to ask. Then we cut back to Kikoru, who is flying away from the attack, it looks like. So I think that she managed to dodge, but there's not a lot of follow through on that other than, well, she's not crushed by the tail, so I guess she dodged it.
She's not dead, so I guess she's okay.
As she is dodging around, Kikoru remembers back when, Kafka and everyone were fighting against number 9, and she couldn't do anything against it. And she thinks, all I could do in that moment was watch. I just dragged everyone down, and I let him get away. But this time, I swear I'll get you out of there. Just hold tight. and she flies up in the air. She's got her gun trained on the Daikaiju, and that is where our chapter ends. That's it.
That's the chapter, isn't it? I don't want to do this every week. Like, every time there's a Kaiju number 8 chapter, I don't want to sit here and be like the grumpy bitch who's just like, but I don't want it to be still going. But like, I truly am just like, I don't know. It's like watching like a really good wrestling match, and then like right before the end, another wrestler comes in to like, now it's a different match, but the bell didn't it's still the same match. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, are we going to start off kind of, and then they're immediately like, everyone's hitting their finishers over and over again. I'm just like, I don't know what's happening anymore,
I'm tired.
guys. Like, I kind of want to take a nap. Can I take a nap and come back to this series?
I understand you. There has to be a certain point eventually where you have a break. And our break was supposed to be that, mind trip flashback that Kafka had with the spirits that, compose number 8. But it's very easy to look at that and go, yes, but also no, because in the universe of the fight, that's still going right now. So there hasn't been a break from that, even though you pretend that there is. And I've always kind of felt that way about a lot of things where it's like, we're going to interrupt the fight to have a flashback. It's like, yeah, but you haven't actually gone into downtime while doing that. You've just like cut away from it in order to do some other stuff. It's something that happens all the time. We've seen it happen in One Piece. We've seen it happen in Bleach. And I've never really been the biggest fan of action. We're going to leave the action on a cliffhanger to cut back to do some emotional storytelling stuff without actually resolving the action, and then we'll go back to the action and then resolve it. So I get where you're coming from. That being said, this chapter in and of itself, I feel like I'm starting to get a little bit more back into it, because it's like, all right, I'll bite on this one more time. I'll believe you when you say that we're heading towards the climax this one more time. And there's some details. It's like, hey, Kakuru's involved. It looks like Mita's going to be involved in the fight in some way. But if you screw me again, then I'll probably be right there with you with this series.
Well, don't worry, Nick. I certainly won't have any issues with the next chapter we're going to talk about.
I feel like this might be the best Yuri chapter we've ever gotten of Spy Family.
This chapter almost made me consider dropping the series. So we're going to have different opinions on this one.
Let's talk about it then. We start off with Yuri at work, as he's dealing with interrogating various suspects and stuff, and they have fun names like Falsa Charges and Conspiracist. Good for them. But at the end of their day, Yuri is walking with his coworkers and is like, man, there's a lot of extremists we got to deal with today. And one of the older agents is like, hey, kids, you want to go and grab some steak tonight? It's been a while since but we still need to celebrate when Yuri punched out Twilight, like a year ago of publication, something like that. But Yuri says, sorry, Chief, I've got a date tonight. And it's like he's talking about going to see Yor, but everyone's like, okay, yeah. And one of the other agents is like, I mean, he's definitely talking about it going on a court date with his sister, who's married.
The dude who just pops in is like, I assume he means his sister. Like,
it's definitely his sister.
I'm shocked that they keep inviting this dude. I guess when you work in like, the secret police, you really don't care about like upstanding ethics in your coworkers or anything like that. But it is wild to hear this dude be like, I have a hot date tonight. And it's like, oh? He means his sister. And you're like, oh.
Oh. And Chloe, the female agent, who is definitely being positioned at this point as like the one that we're going to just kind of like jam Yuri into a relationship with at the end of this so that he'll, eventually stop being himself. She's like, ah! So she doesn't like the idea of him dating someone else because, you see, heteronormativity. So anyway, cut ahead. It's time for Yuri and Yor's date. They're meeting up to have some dinner, and he's really excited to see her. I do like Yuri's phrasing of, it's the first time we've been able to go out together since she was abducted by the Forgers. It's so dramatic. And so they start walking together, and, he talks a little bit about work, but, he talks about it in vague terms because she doesn't know about what he does. And Yori's like, oh, wow, you're so mature now. You're so grown up. And they go shopping before dinner. And Yora's, observing about how like everything seems to be really expensive in department stores these days. She comes across, I don't know how to describe this. The vessel of a captured soul of a rabbit. Like, what is that thing?
It's just like a screaming little rabbit guy with teeth. What do you mean, Nick? Don't you have a couple of these in your house? God,
No.
I wish I had like more skill with like clay work, because I would have been like, don't you have one? And hold up one like I made earlier in the day.
Made it. Her comment, it's not that she's impressed by it. It's like, I mean, you say that these are expensive because they're high quality. Is this really a high quality item? And she's like, do you want it? I'll buy it and I'll get it. And she's like, I don't want that. Instead, her eye is drawn to some bedding because she's like, oh, yeah, I want to get something for Anya because she needs, a better bedspread because, she's always drooling on it and Bond's always clawing at it and stuff. And it's like, oh, what a nice mom she is.
Mm-hmm.
Yuri says like, well, I'll buy something for you then. And Yora's like, I mean, okay. I mean, I guess Lloyd needs a toothbrush. Nope, no more shopping. Nope, no more shopping, I guess. Too dangerous. Let's go. They go to a fancy place for dinner. And so Yor says, like, yeah, I'll just have some apple juice. Yuri's like, are you sure you don't want to have, like, any alcohol? Is it because Lloyd's always forcing housework on you? And she says, no, it's just that I tend to really go at it with Lloyd after I drink alcohol, so I've been trying to cut back. She means punching him. Yuri does not know that, and he's very upset. Good.
Yeah, every time Yuri is upset, we should all be pleased with ourselves. Like a
I certainly am.
A cosmic right has been done in this universe.
Ha! You think your sister's being plowed by a guy you don't like? Fuck you. So, he keeps on going on about how awful the Forgers are to her and making her their servant. She says, I'm not their servant. And he says, it's okay, Yor. Victims of brainwashing always deny it. And she's like, stop it. But she also says, in addition to stuff that she gets up to, that she, has played volleyball with some other moms. I mean, that was one time that she got to meet up with them. And Yuri has apparently heard that she has had connections with Mrs. Desmond, but he doesn't see that as any sort of problem because, he doesn't know anything about Yor's career or Lloyd's for that matter. But she also says like, oh, and also I've been going out drinking with my coworkers, and Yuri, fresh off the memory of thinking that means that she has sex with Lloyd a bunch. She's like, never go drinking, Yor, never do that. But Yor transitions from that into just saying like, and you know what? Looking after Anya really makes me happy. It reminds me of you when you were little. And Yuri first gets upset because he thinks that Anya's stupid because he's a judgmental asshole.
In slight fairness, he did try to teach the girl and did learn that she is very dumb. Like Anya, she's like 4, so she's allowed to be as dumb as she is. But like in his mind, he's like, I don't know, she's kind of dumb for a 6-year-old.
But they get a bit more serious and they reflect on, their time, growing up together when, Yor had to look after him essentially as a parent. And Yuri is, regretful of that. He says, you were sacrificing your own happiness in order to take care of me. And Yor says, look, I know the times were hard back then, but who says I didn't enjoy them? The days that we spent together, I wouldn't trade for anything. It's because of those times that I'm now able to work really hard at my job now. When you got your job and had to move away from home, I was all by myself and I was really lonely. And Yuri says like, oh, is that like why you got married? Because you were lonely? You're just like, no, because it's not. But she says that now that she does have Lloyd and Anya in her life, she says that, she can see how accomplished he is. And she says those feelings of loneliness are in the past now. And then Yuri gets kind of pretty pathetic again, and he's like, but I'm lonely without you. Can't you take care of me forever? And Yuri's like, no, you're grown up and very impressive and can take care of yourself. So he's like, what if I get dumber than Anya, though? What if I'm more pathetic than her, so you need to take care of me? A waiter 30 feet away from the table says, sir, you need to leave, which really popped me. He doesn't even want to come close to say, get out. He's like, you need to get out.
Yeah, you need to leave now, sir. This is like the third time you screamed.
So they leave the restaurant. As they're walking through the streets, Yuri reflects on, like, back when they lived in the countryside, he could see more of the stars in the sky. And he says, have you ever thought about, like, the two of us just going back there? Because I was happy back then, like, too. And I know there's not a whole lot there, but, like, we could climb mountains together. I'm sure that, like, I could really get away from the wild animals and stuff now. But Yor gets, like, a sad look in her eyes, and she, looks around all the people on the streets, like street performers, people window shopping and stuff. And she says, don't you think the city's a wonderful place, though? And look, there's work I've got to do here. And Yuri realizes, like, yeah, I've got work to do too. And Yor, he apologized for it, and then it's like, okay, I guess we have to, get going because we both got to get home. And he gives her a present because he got her the bedding that she was looking at before. So isn't that nice? And they both go home, and as Yuri starts to go off on his way, he sees, a bakery, and he remembers when they were young and how, he really liked, sweets. So he begged Yor to get him one. And so she was like, okay, but we don't have money. So, just get one. And now Yuri's, got a successful job and stuff. So he's like, yeah, I'll take 20.
Yeah.
And so he does that. Goes home. He has a moment of, like, he's very, paranoid about security because, of course, he is. He's part of the secret police. But as he settles in, he sits down, reflects on more of their time together. Even though they could only afford one of these buns, he would split the piece with Yor. And he thinks to himself, I grew up wanting to see her smile every single day. So why am I so lonely all the time? Why does it feel like she's so far away? Is it because of those stupid forgers? Well, yes. But maybe that's not the only reason. It's because there are too many parts of me that I can't show her now. Which feels like he's the first person in this whole series who's realized that about themselves, because everyone in the Forgers is, like, constantly doing that with each other. So that's interesting. But he gets a phone call at that point. It's, his work friends who are saying, like, hey, Chloe really misses you, so come to a bar. And he's like, all right, sure, I'll meet up with you. Which indicates that, like, hey, maybe he'll have something that will help to provide him with some form of happiness. And meanwhile, Yor goes home, and she's, got the presents that Yuri gave her, and they're, like, actually nice this time.
Yeah. So you like this chapter?
I like this chapter. Okay. I thought it was cute and bizarrely... It was bizarre of Yuri to have any form of introspection, but I appreciated the change of pace.
It's a unique moment for him. I will fully admit off the rip, I read this when I was in kind of a shitty mood, so I'm sure that bled into my opinions. I'm very tired of a comedic secret police character. It's kind of a abhorrent thing. I don't want to pull too much into reality, but I'm not super laughing when there's, like, jokes about him detaining people illegally and stuff like that. I'm like, no, this kind of sucks, and I hate this character. And I think I'm just also kind of frustrated that it feels like Spy Family's going to use war as a quick way to get emotion from us, to be like, isn't this sad? Isn't this awful? Isn't this violence bad? But it doesn't, I don't know. It just feels like it's never going to say anything more. And maybe it shouldn't. This is not, like, a political statement piece. It's a silly manga about raising, like, a psychic baby, essentially. So, like, I get it. But I'm also just... very tired that I still have to kind of sit here with all this fucking, like, your Yuri stuff that it's just exhausting. I don't like this character, and I don't know what part of it is supposed to be appealing. Like, am I supposed to find Yuri a funny character? Like, he hits upon, like, a Japanese comedic trope that we've all noted. Like, I don't think any of us have a cis-con character that we really enjoy. So, like, maybe it's just, like, a blockade or something that just I can't get through. But I just feel like we're spinning our wheels waiting for an inevitable, like, oh, Yuri realizes now maybe he's not a bad, like, maybe he shouldn't do this anymore or something. Like, I don't know. I don't even know where this is going to go. Like, you know, Spy Family could run for like another fucking decade. And I feel like I'm going to get nothing except just a notion of like, oh, it's another secret police character chapter. This is going to be fun. And I also love that we're characterizing the rest of his friends so we can really intimately know all of the members of the secret police. It's like, fuck off. I don't have any interest in this. Anytime, I might just start skipping Yuri chapters, unless it's going to be part of an arc. Because I got super bummed out at the start of this chapter. I'm not going to lie.
I get you. I mean, if Spy Family definitely has two modes. One is like, oh, things are actually progressing as we learn about, like, you know, the important characters. And the rest of it is like these weird slice of life moments. And so if you're not into like the characters that they're happening to, then I totally get that. Where it's just like, no, well, who cares? Like, what? Fuck this. If you're not enjoying their, like, if you have no sympathy for the character or any interest in them, then yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on from there. Now let's talk about Astro Royale, Quinn.
Now we're gonna talk about a good chapter, Nick.
Oh man. It's chapter 47. Match over! Oh boy, it's time for Hibaru to punch really hard. And he's got his Mankintan all charged up. And he's going, let's go, Shikaba! And Shikaba says, it's no use. None of your attacks will work on me. He's
Nick,
got his peacock strands all over him.
Quick question. Should be easy to answer. What are Shikaba's powers? How do they work?
So they Hibaru goes for his barehanded Magnum Blast and charges in, and I guess Shikaba teleports out of it. He blocks it. There's peacock eyes all over the blast that Hibaru has launched, so he's doing something with it, and there's a big impact because everyone's going ah in the stands, and Shikaba can feel it as he teleports. So he teleports behind Hibaru. He goes for the new Exorcist special, and he's like, what a frightening power. I'm taking damage even with the Vermilion Mist around my body. Hold on, what now? And then Hibaru's like, I knew you'd try to strike me from behind. And then after launching his really powerful punch, he spins around and punches with his normal fist.
Holy shit. I forgot how stupid this exchange is, too. Because he's also like, and yesterday you revert to your real body when you attack. And I'm like, so wait, does this dude's power have whole-ass mechanics we've just not been able, like, was I
Vermilion Mist, Quinn! Vermilion Mist!
Was I supposed to be processing the Vermilion Mist the entire time?
The Vermilion Mist, obviously. He's surrounded by Vermilion Mist, which, you know, looks very easy to keep track of, and it's easy to tell what it's doing with his body at all times. So,
okay, cool.
Hibaru, who's very smart, figured it out. So he punches Shikaba, whose cane thing goes flying across the floor. Knocks Shikaba on his ass, but, you know, he only punched him with his regular fist. So Shikaba gets up, and Hibaru's like, so you can stand, huh?
Like, yeah, dude, it's the first time you hit him the whole match, and he hasn't fought anybody. You fought like 4 people.
So remember that whole thing about, you know, how Hibaru, like, you know, uses all of his power and then it knocks him out? Anyway, he keeps on fighting.
Yeah. It would be interesting if it was like, okay, well, he just can't use that arm anymore. He's like, he still punch it with that arm. He can't use his special power, but he can just punch you with it.
I suppose he didn't say exactly how much of his power he was throwing into this time. So who knows? Anyway, so they do a bunch of cross counters, which don't look nearly as fun as those usually do. And people go, ooh, ah, as it's happening. And eventually Shikaba headbutts Hibaru, and then directly after being headbutted, Hibaru headbutts him back.
Well, now hold on, Nick. We skipped
Mhm.
over. There is a crowd of people, and a guy says, "Get him!" And if you look, just diagonal up to the left, his twin is also there, going, "Ah!"
It's great that everyone in this crowd has plain white T-shirts on.
Yeah.
So
Everyone has a very similar expression, a very similar outfit. It's very handy.
oh man, it's just like what Yusuke Murata would say was the key to like having character designs that are immediately recognizable. Make them all equally uninteresting and nothing distinct about any of
Yeah.
them. So when you're looking into a crowd, you don't want to look at them. You just assume they're all different people.
Mhm.
That's the way you do it. Hibaru, as he and Shikaba are doing the I'm a tough wrestler thing when they're really exhausted at the end of the match, where they're like leaning foreheads against each other and going yeah, yeah, yeah. He says, "You're not Tendo's puppet. Stop going along with other people's wishes and show me how you really feel." And he headbutts him. Wata! And Shikaba, who has no counter for the very telegraphed headbutt, goes, "Ugh, how I really feel." And we cut to when their father was, sick after having his life force stolen away from him by Tendo. Shikaba visited him, and his father said, "Do you like Hibaru? I have entrusted the future of the Otsurugi family to him. He's still naive and has a lot to learn. I want you to teach him how to be tough." Was that Shikaba's thing? Being tough? Was that his thing this whole time?
Yeah, dude, this has been tough love. Haven't you gotten it?
Has it? So he was told while their father was on his deathbed to take care of Hibaru. And now we cut back to the presidency that Shikaba has fallen. He's on his back, and he says, "If I can, I want to stay with you." And he's crying, crying, crying. And Hibaru goes, "Ugh." And
It would make a lot more sense if we've like shown Shikaba to be like extraordinarily conflicted. Like we see like brief moments of confusion about where he's kind of going forward in life. Because yeah, he works for Tendo, but like he didn't want to kill his dad really, and he doesn't really want to kill Hibaru either. But it's just kind of the hand being dealt to him. He actually wants to work with Hibaru. But we kind of don't really get to see that. He's just kind of like an insane person throughout most of the story so far. And then once once he took his first punch, everything just kind of like came down like a house of cards. He's like, actually, maybe I should work for you. That's actually what I've always wanted.
Quinn, whenever you're writing a series, you can always just change your mind about how a character is towards the end of their arc.
Yeah.
And just like say that actually they were conflicted the whole time, even though you gave no indication of that the entire way through.
My favorite
Anyway,
my favorite moment of Ice Shield 21 is when Aegon at the end of the match against Damon Belbat's like, actually, I've been jealous of all of you from the beginning. You guys are so cool. Can I join the team?
And then he did.
Yeah, it was wild. They crushed the rest of the tournament. It was actually a cakewalk from there.
They're like, yeah, sure, we can just like fire Ichimaru now, and have you join in. Everyone's like, he was on our team. It's like, yes, he was very nice. You got a haircut and everything, guys. Come on, shut up. So anyway, yeah, he says I lose, and so everyone goes, "Woo! Match is over!" And no one in the audience is upset because
I was gonna say, didn't everyone?
No one bet on Shikaba, I guess.
Didn't a specific like huge portion of the audience bet on the obvious favorite? I don't know. Whatever.
So at that moment, Hibaru turns to Tendo and he says, "Hey, I'm taking Shikaba with me." And he gets a full page spread to say this for some reason. Tendo stares at him like death, and then he holds up the Daybreak Ore. What? He's got a Daybreak Ore? And he says, "Do you really think I'd let you leave?" And he starts going, oh no. Turns out he's got to fight Tendo, the actual villain of the arc.
Or
It's coming.
what might just happen is what fucking sword whip guy just does something,
Right.
and they'll drop the orb, and then the one brother who's here is gonna pick up the orb and be like, "Cool, well that's all we were here for," and then they're gonna bolt. But then we realize that the series has to end in like 7 chapters, so maybe the other guy just shows up too, and he's like, "Actually, I'm just gonna handle this now."
Or maybe, like, as he's powering up with the Daybreak Ore, Hibaru will use the super speed he's demonstrated previously, which lets him get from one side of the arena to the other in within a second, and he just, here, give me that.
Yeah.
And that's
that'd be pretty sweet. Nick, this chapter blows. And what's so infuriating is, like, I know this series is fucking ending. Its rankings are awful. Its sales are awful. No one seems to be supporting this series beyond, like, a very small minority of fans. And that's, fine. If this is your shit, I'm not here to yuck your yum. This is one of the most exhausting ends to a series, like, a cancellations that I've, like, this shit feels nowhere close to the end. We're just gonna get a chapter where they're just gonna be like, and here are the adventures we had afterwards, or something like that.
And yet, we kind of needed to keep on going because it's an umbrella covering Embers from cancellation right now. So, God, Embers. Remember the name. Chapter 9, Noboru Haitani, the core of the offense. Hey, so everyone is at their prefectural tournament, and as they look over the tournament bracket, we learned that they would take on Kurobayashi in the semifinals at this point. Yukizuki, however, says, because Hikage is the one who's looking over the tournament bracket, she says, hey, let's not focus on that. We got to focus on the now. The first game is, it sets the tone for the year ahead, because we're going to play Iba Seiryu and their tough defense today. Our concern is how we beat them. We get, some reaction to, like, all the crowd noise going on, and then Yuka gets bumped by the ace of the Iba Seiryu team, Gonza Kaneda, who is so huge he gets an exclamation point in his introductory thing.
He's big.
He's like twice this boy's size. He's so big.
They note that the captain's like is like 6 feet tall, and this guy towers above him. So he's got to be like 6'8".
He's like 8 feet tall.
Yeah,
it's
something.
So he's like one of those very bombastic big guys too. He's like, "Oh, you're so small, I didn't see you! Wow!" And he's introduced as the biggest forward in the prefecture. Captain Bugai tells him, "Hey, stop messing with my teammates." And you can tell that Kaneda is like actually like kind of pissed off by Bugai, because he's like really, really emphatically going, "Ha ha ha! How you going? Ha ha ha!" So Haitani is watching over this too while he's still studying his formations like a good boy. He's a very good student, right? Then Kaneda is just like, bumping people off of him whenever they approach, and he's like, all these guys are just scrawny twerps. This will be easy. Bunch of pushovers. We're going to be the ones who are going to beat Kurobayashi this year. But then he bumps shoulders with Haitani, who's not paying attention, and falls flat in his ass. And Haitani just goes, Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there. Like, legitimately,
such a cool moment. He legit was not trying to. He just bumped into him. This boy's so fucking sturdy. He knocked this, like, dude with, like, 1.5 feet on him just flat on his ass.
Kaneda, when he was doing it, was like, "Oh, I didn't see you down there." And Haitani just like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you." Very legit. So Kaneda gets really pissed off about that. He's like, "Are you saying you didn't see me because I'm too small?" He's like, "No, I'm sorry. I'm doing last minute cramming. I'm sorry." And then Kaneda says, "If there's one thing I hate more than everything," knocks the booklet out of Heidi's hands, stamps on it, crumples it into the ground. "It's getting looked down on. You should be more careful in the future." And there's a very sweet thing, because Saitani's like, "Oh, my notebook." And he remembers all the little bits of help that Hikage gave him while helping him study for this. And then he goes, bastard! He is dead!
It's actually a very cool moment. I was like, what a quick and easy way to make me care about this match.
Yeah, these jobber team, basically. This is like if you had gone into the Goigahama to Cupid's match in ISO 21 and been like, I hope Sita fucking kills these guys.
Yeah, fuck yeah, I hope he annihilates them. What I love too, you can tell this is like a straight jobber team because none of the other players are even given faces. They're just silhouettes, and then it's just the one dude who we know.
Towering up above them. Very cool, like movie poster or like fight poster graphic between them, though. It's neat.
I like Haitani's expression in it.
There's some really, really mean expressions in this sequence from the moment that Haitani bumps Kaneda down as they're like arguing with each other and stuff. Match starts off and Yukizuki just thinks to herself like, I hope this works. And we get a flashback to a meeting that she had together with Bugai a week before this. They knew ahead of time that they were going to have this team in round 1. And Bugai says, like, yeah, we did manage to score a goal on them and win, but they've got a tough defense. They've got Kaneda on offense. They're going to be a really rough matchup for us. And Yukizuki says, yeah, which is why we have to dominate them. If we're going to beat Kurabayashi this year, we can't struggle with our first round opponent. At the very least, we need to beat them scoring at least 5 goals. And Bugai is like, I mean, do you think that that's possible? And Yukizuki says, yeah, with our lineup, sure. We've got Haitani. He's the keystone. He solves our team's one big shortcoming, a lack of firepower, and he's going to be the core of our offense. And as it so happens, Haitani was passing by the club office at this moment, and he's like, me? I'm the core of the offense? Coach hasn't come to me with anything specific yet. But after I overheard that, I crammed all kinds of techniques in that let me do offense stuff. And he's got, these techniques down. He's written them down. He's like, I've got to live up to expectations on me, right? This game depends on me. And he says over to Kaneda, I'm going to be the star on offense and defense and leave you flailing around in the mud. And Kaneda is not even upset by this. He's just like, what are you talking about? What is going on?
Did we have a conversation? Is that like a response to something?
Meanwhile, in the audience, or we see some people from other teams. Kurabayashi, as we've got some guys who look like they could be in college, honestly. That dude's facial hair. He's like, yeah, this is going to be an interesting first round match. And some of the people realize, like, what the hell is Kurabayashi doing here? But goatee guy turns to someone and says, which team do you think is going to win? Nerima. And it's Yuzen Nerima. And Quinn, he's solving a Rubik's Cube.
I want to know if there is somebody we know. I know one person who's very good at Rubik's Cubes. Maybe I'll have to send her an image of this. I wonder if he is actually... I mean, we can't see the exact colors. It's black and white. But I was like, I wonder if he is actually progressing towards, like, a very impressive solve. Or if, like, the mangaka is like, I don't know what the fuck a Rubik's Cube, like, being solved looks like.
From what I know about Rubik's Cube solving, because I've never been able to really do it myself, but I've seen... in high school, it was a big thing. Like, a lot of people were really into them because I went to a high school for big nerds, and it looks like he's solving it in a pretty standard progression, because it looks like he's got like the one set of 9 cubes aligned properly, and it looks like he's starting to line them up with the rest in the way that you're supposed to.
Okay.
So it looks like he's doing an actually pretty logical progression from what I can see of it. So Nerima gets this question and he says, good question. When I get taiyaki fish pastries, I eat the head first and not the tail. And I was like, okay, that's not what I asked you at all. So you need to pretend at least to be interested in the stuff going on around you. Their coach is mentioned to be right there on the sidelines, but we don't see them at all. But the other player says he said that there was someone he was curious about, but he doesn't remember the name of the person he was curious about. But Nerima says, I don't care. It doesn't matter who we play. To me, they're all the same. And as he says that, he's thinking, ugh, it's so boring, as he finishes solving the Rubik's Cube in his hands. So we get introduction to our first big antagonist
Yes.
in terms of players in the series. And this was a really fun chapter. A lot of really fun expressions, some nice comedy. So very easy setup, as you said, for our first opponent in this. I really like this chapter.
Yeah, this was a good one. I thought it was fun. I want to see Haitani destroy this guy, but I feel like, as mentioned, he has to first attempt to do a bunch of impressive offensive moves and then realize that's not actually what he is so important to. He is actually supposed to be much better at just getting the ball back.
Steal the ball so that we can generate scoring opportunities, you dumber.
Yeah.
Someone write to Japan and tell them to read this series more, please, so that we get more of it. All right, Hima-Ten, Chapter 36, Summer Class. Himari is getting her hair done when she gets a call from Iemori, who asks to have a week off from cleaning so that he can go to his summer class with Honoka. He mentions that, like, look, lessons go long every single day. I got to focus on studying while I'm taking it, so he needs the extra time. But Himari also points out, like, all right, I mean, that's like the week after the Oban, though, and I'm going home for Oban, so does that mean I'm not going to get another cleaning until the end of the month? I wanted to talk to you about celebrating Kana's cover and stuff. And Himari says, yeah, I saw how hard she's working, and that's really inspired me, too. Would it make things hard for you to do it this way? And typical Himari, you know, she kind of buries the thing she actually wants to say, and she just says, yeah, it's fine. Hope you get to study a lot. She's definitely not bothered. It doesn't bother her.
It's not an issue. She's cool with it.
The two stylists who are helping her with her hair say, like, oh, you hired a house cleaner, huh? And she says, yeah, sorry about that. And they say, oh, yeah, you're so lucky with everything. But Himari just reflects, like, I guess I'm not going to really be able to see him until the end of the month. That means if I want to invite him to see the fireworks after he cleans, I only have one chance. Ooh. So she's still thinking about that.
Mm-hmm.
The summer class starts up. Iemori gets to the cram school. As soon as he gets there into the class, Honoka greets him, and she's got her hair up. And Iemori is immediately like, oh my god, she's got her hair in a ponytail. I can't focus. And honestly, I kind of understand. I like her hair like this a lot better than her hair normally is.
She looks cute. It is always a thing that I find a little funny. Like a girl in ponytail.
I fully understand the mentality that Iemori has, because I remember having, you know, crushes on girls when I was this age, and just being like, time they did anything differently, I was like, they did something different and just could not, like, compute anything else in my brain.
But that's cute. That's adorable.
Yeah. I still do it with Nicole sometimes. So yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So he also declares the ponytail is too powerful, which I really like the dramatic phrasing of that. But at that moment, Mayu suddenly shows up, and Iemori's like, oh, you go to the same cram school? And she says, yep, I started with Honoka, but I'm in a different course. I just came by to check in on you two, so don't worry. And Iemori's like, what do you mean, don't worry? She knows what's up. It's okay. Yeah. But and Mayu's like, you must be really excited to study, Honoka. You even put your hair up. And then she whispers a warning to Iemori, which is, Honoka's really popular here, so you better watch out to keep an eye on the other guys. And immediately, some guys behind them in the class are like, who the fuck is that guy?
Yeah,
just came in and sat next to her.
We're going to have to teach him a lesson, she.
Well, I don't know if any of these 1930s gangsters are going to stand a shot with Honoka, but we'll see. So, anyway, it's time for class. Mayu heads off, and she says, yeah, I'll come by during lunch and snoop on you again. They get into, you know, studying and everything like that. Iemori's really trying to focus in, but he also reflects, like, I've always wanted to just be able to sit next to her in class. Lunchtime arrives, and this time Iemori didn't make himself lunch. He just got a cheap pasta salad He says, like, I just want to, I'm making just lunch for myself, so I just wanted to take it easy this time. And then Honoka says, like, oh, just for yourself. So you mean you make lunches for other people? And Iemori's like, yes. Yes, for my mom while I'm at it. And he's like, that's not technically a lie. That's not a lie. Honoka, meanwhile, did make a bento, and she's got, like, honestly, that is like a squished Pikachu in 1/3 of her bento. But he says, like, oh, that's really cute when he's looking at it. And he also thinks, like, maybe I should start doing this for Yoshino's lunches. Always thinking about work. Mm-hmm. But Honoka reflects on, like, her mother saying, like, why don't you make one for Iemori? Ba, ba, ba. She does offer him a bite of her lunch because she's like, pasta salad's not going to just keep you going. And fortunately, we don't have one of those, like, oh, but the girl I like can't cook. No, he tries some of the like shrimp that she's got. He's like, it's really, really good. Yeah. So that's nice. Meanwhile, Mayu has, like, shown up to Snoop as she said that she would. She's just peering over a desk from nearby, while meanwhile the other guys in the class are like, yeah, who's that guy think he is? See? How dare he get all schmaltzy with her?
That's my dame there over there, that is.
My dame?
Take it on the arches there, kid.
Mayu does something on her phone. And then we cut away from that as Honoka and Iemori just, like, get back to studying, and we just cut through the rest of the week as they're doing this summer class every day. And Iemori reflects afterwards, like, man, we learned so much stuff, but this was, like, an entirely different level from, like, regular class. Then as they're talking about that stuff, Honoka mentions, like, hey, what kind of school do you want to get into? And Iemori's like, I don't know. He also says, like, I'll bet you'd be popular in college. And Honoka's like, excuse me? No, I would not. Like, really offended by it. But she says, like, like, my mom was popular. She won a beauty contest. It's like, yes, because all the women in this series are outrageously gorgeous. Every one of them.
Every woman's gorgeous, Nick.
So...
Got him.
As they're waiting at the station, Iemori says, but I like being average. If my crush tells me I'm cute, that's enough for me. Theoretically. And Iemori reflects on, Himari telling him, like, Honoka probably wanted to look cute for you before. And Himari's like, because I didn't tell her she looked cute last time. But a few more people arrive at the station, and Honoka is like, "Oh, God, yeah, other girls from class are here, so let's talk about something else." And then a train starts coming in, and Iemori says, like, so when you had your ponytail," and then he stops and he says, as the train is passing by, "You've always been cute, Kanai. I'm sure anyone can see it, especially me." And Quinn, when this happened, I was like, that train better not have covered up what he just said to her. And it didn't. She heard him. It was just to look dramatic. It did not actually stop her from hearing the very sweet little thing that he said to her. And Honoka is like, so, as she's happy because her crush.
She's having a great time. Look, Nick, there are a few things adorable as, like, a woman in, like, in the first stages of, like, getting complimented by someone she has feelings for. It's a very adorable thing.
Mayu shows up. Gotta snoop some more. Yay. But she comes down to them. I like all as well that we get a little bit of, like, Honoka saying, we spent the whole week studying together. I'm allowed to be greedy and want more of this. Like, yes, you are.
Yeah.
It's okay. You're allowed to feel that way. Stop it. Stop feeling guilty for having feelings. I know that this is something that so many people feel.
I was going to say, now, Nick, are you directing that particular comment towards Honoka or to me?
No comments. Mayu shows up And she says, like, hey, I don't want things, with summer to just, like, end with us going to cram school. How about we all go see the fireworks show happening tomorrow? So before Himari could get her one chance to invite Iamori to the fireworks show, Mayu proposed that idea. And Honoka turns to him and says, well, I'm in, yeah. It's the last big, summer fireworks event. But Iamori remembers when he was out with Himari, and she asks, like, hey, hypothetically, what if I asked you to the fireworks show? And now he doesn't know what to do. Very good of him to think of her in that moment, though.
Yes.
That's, a lot of people wouldn't. So.
Yeah, he's a good bean, that Iamori. Nick! Sidcraft. Love. It's a mystery. Case 18.
Do we have to?
Yes. For whom the Twilight Cat dances. I'm going to make this actually very, very quick because Lulu is dropping off the gains she's had for the past month at a local orphanage. There's like even a little description to remind us how she's a Robin Hood thief who gives to the poor what she takes. So this is her.
She's the Scarlet Pumpernickel.
Yep. Well, now I sound stupid for using a reference that's not what this is clearly trying to ape. But
yeah, specifically the Scarlet Pumpernickel, not anything else.
Yeah. So she is here. She walks around the corner. Boom. It's Sidcraft. And she's like, why are you here? And he's like, this orphanage gets donations from the Mist Cat every month, so I'm here to investigate. And she's like, you son of a bitch.
I'm not here to drop off a donation. Isn't that a coincidence?
Yeah. So that must mean I'm off your list then. A bunch of the children run up. They all gather around Lulu. They're like, oh my gosh, we love you so much. And Sid's like, oh, do you come here often? She's like, I come here once or twice. It's nothing major. Actually, I befriended the kids just as like a cover, but now I can't tell him that part of it, basically. So the kids are like, hey, we think we know you from somewhere. What are you? And he's like, oh, I'm the famous detective. All the children immediately like move into action, including one of the babies. And they're like, you won't fucking take our goddamn savior, you piece of shit. I'll fucking rip your fucking throat out and shove it up your asshole if I need to. They don't say that, but
I wish one of them had said that.
It's the attitude again. And Sid has to explain. He's like, no, I like Miss Cat too. I think stealing is bad, but basically the kids try to quiz him on it. But after this, there's like a whole bit about hide and seek. A lot of this stuff is irrelevant. I'm just going to be skipping through it. Lulu tries to hide at some point, and then Sid just so happens to hide directly next to her because it was logically the best hiding spot available. And Sid, in his classic way, just says, is it love? And Lulu's like, huh? And then he goes, I mean, those kids, they're so gosh darn cute. And she's like, you stupid piece of shit. Who talks like this?
Craft.
But he's like, oh, sorry, just you were making a face earlier, and I never seen you make that because she had a very gentle face. She's like, oh, was I making a strange face? He's like, no, it wasn't strange at all. They get caught playing hide and seek because they're talking the whole time. There's an entire subplot about the kids' badge getting stolen, and Sid and Lulu have to pretend to be parents taking the kids to sleep so that they'll go to bed.
What an eventful chapter. There's so many contrivances that we get packed into this one chapter.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. Sid takes a moment when the little girl's like, wow, you're both nice, to be like, why did you steal the badge? And there's a whole explanation for why she did it. It's because she has a crush on this boy, and she thinks he spends too much time thinking about the Miss Cat, and he wants her to pay some attention to her. There you go. Sid, though, does kind of bring the idea. She's like, well, I thought if I stole as well as Miss Cat, it would get me more attention. And Sid's like, oh, well, that's not why Miss Cat steals, though. Regardless of whether it's good or bad, the reason she steals isn't to flaunt her skills or to gain affection. It's to deliver smiles to people in distress. And there's like a cute little, like, here's your badge back moment, all that sort of stuff. Sid and Lulu are walking away from things, and Sid's like, I'm deciding to be pithy in this moment. I truly don't understand this mist cat. People have been brought so many smiles, but stealing can never be condoned. However, if there's one thing I know, it's that I imagine it is a very lonely path the mist cat is on. And Lulu says, well, if you keep giving her attention as you've been, she won't be all that lonely, Mr. Detective. And Sid's just like, wow, what a nice girl. Oh, man, I sure do envy Elio, though that's a bad thought to have. And then the chapter ends with Lulu being like, oops, I never dropped off the money.
Yeah. Quinn, how do you think Lulu's hair stays that way?
I don't get it. This chapter supremely disturbed me because she has like a tuft that goes like that frames her face, but then like just melds into the rest of her hair at some point.
Yeah, don't know how it does that. Anyway, yeah.
We're running low on energy. We're gonna pick it up. Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi. We gotta talk about Gone Girl, which I feel like is a Gone Girl reference, but
possibly. Chapter 38, the fourth demon lord, Gorgon Mid. Oh, you thought that we were going to have a contest between Sakaki and Mukurojima? Well, they fight for like 3 pages, and then we cut away from them. There are, like, honestly, a couple of fun things, like how Sakaki goes to behead Mukurojima, and he just rips his own head off and turns it around to, like, Sero him from point-blank range. Yeah. That's a cool thing. And then Yuta shows up. So I was looking forward to that fight, and then it was time to do something else. Gorgon Maid is fighting against Kyoka. Not that Kyoka, but the eye patch girl. So Kurogane.
Oh, that makes sense.
So yeah, Kurogane has just landed a really solid punch on Gorgon Maid, and who did not flinch at all. And Gorgon Maid warns her, says, like, you can look straight in my left eye and not turn into a doll, which is proof that you don't fear me. So that's the thing that affected her squad before, is just that they were afeared of her when they met eyes with her. So she's a special type of Gorgon thing. But she says, she's asked, like, why dolls? And Gorgon Maid's like, because they're cute. I want to have an entire room full of dolls that used to be humans. And you're going to be my 1000th doll.
It's good to have goals, to be honest. Just, admirable.
Kurogane says, I suppose 4 tolls just won't cut it. Perhaps doubling it will do the trick. And her crest, which, of course, is on her cleavage, why wouldn't it be, glows, and she declares, Gong Girl!
It's because Super Power Girl doesn't put something to fill that spot because she doesn't think she can ever live up to the crest of Superman. What are we having such a hard problem understanding?
How many explanations for that have you heard?
That's the only one I've ever really paid attention to.
There is one that I've heard, which I do kind of appreciate, which is just Power Girl is just like, look, I don't give a fuck if people see my cleavage, and if it distracts a horny idiot when I'm about to punch them in the face, great.
Yeah.
So I think I like that one better than any other that I've heard. But anyway, so Gone Girl gets activated, and this time she's got 8 tolls instead of 4, so she punches Gorgon Maid in the face, sends her flying, and she's like, all right, here we go. But Gorgon Maid says, fine then, I've got a special finisher for you, Nightmare Eye. And this time she reveals her other eye, not the doll-turning one, but a different one. And she says, this is my foolproof cheat skill. Just with eye contact, it awakens a human's most deep-seated fear, and in turn grants that human eternal peace of mind. And Kurogane starts having flashbacks to a special man in her life, whose face we do not see all throughout. But, like, wakes up and Kyoka is assured, like, hey, you were just having a nightmare. He's made breakfast for her. What a nice guy. And she's like, all of the people that I've ever loved are dead because we were exorcists. And so I had given up on marriage, but this guy's different. He doesn't know I'm an exorcist. We could start a normal family and I can quit. With him, and then it cuts to the scene of the aftermath of some sort of horrible massacre on their wedding day, wouldn't you know it? And too late, Sakaki showed up in order to help out, and her groom died in her arms, and presumably this also left her with the scar on her eye, which is why she has the eye patch. After that point, she became a cross paladin, was reassured like, hey, it's not your fault. She'd been told like, hey, you could like rely on your squad mates more. But then instead of getting to the present, that man hugs her from behind and says, you can rest now. And she is like comatose in the real world. Gorgamete starts to punch her in the head while she can't defend herself. She's totally paralyzed. But in her mind, as she is basking in the embrace of this lover of hers that died, she says, I still have to go. And she breaks out of it and just starts punching Gorgamete again. And she says, I gave up on fear a long time ago. I've decided that solitude is the only partner I need. So Gorgamete's like, all right, fine. Giant snake! It's just, decides to go for the Mayuri method of like, fine, all my subtle attacks didn't work. Giant animal that I ride around on. Here we go. Doesn't matter. Kurogane is like, gone girl, 16 tall. This time I got a sword. Hota! Cuts the head off the snake. Gorgamete flies through the air, and as she's like, well, fine, looks towards her, and this time, honestly, I wish that we had a bit more of this action bit to see this scene better, because she holds the sword over her neck, and it does the classic Medusa thing, reflects the Gorgon's gaze back at her, and turns her into a doll instead. And of course, as Kurogane notes, like, you were afraid of me, and then she picks up the doll and she says, you ended up being number 1000. So that's the fight that happened between them. I'm glad that we got this fight that we were really looking forward to done, right? So
I kind of was excited for it. I was like, look, if we had to be introduced to this character, I'm glad there was something more to her than just she has big boobs.
It was nice to get her backstory and stuff, but to see like there's something to her.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think it's a good backstory. It's actually very funny to me. This is such like a cliche trope, but I'm like, we are literally watching like sort of the part 2 that we're getting the part 1 of in Dandadan, I assume, this week.
It's such a cliche that it was parodied in Wreck-It Ralph 10 years ago. So I get your point.
Yeah.
Where are we going now?
We have
Quinn?
to do Marriagetoxin, chapter 122. They don't have titles.
Yeah. Nabe is done with her trance. We see like the mindscape where she has gotten done beating 1,000 Gakus or something like that. And the Gaku in her head declares, I can't win against you anymore. But fortunately, or unfortunately, in that moment, Nabe senses something behind her. It's the cabin that the real fight was going on in. And as she looks over her shoulder, she says, oh dear, look how many of you are still left. She breaks away from Kinosaki, runs back towards the fight, and as she comes in through the hole in the wall, she just sees a whole ton of Gakus. And it's nice that they like you can see details like all of the people that are fighting, they have the swords bound with their hands, and you can very easily tell, oh, that one's Shinatsu.
Yeah.
And that one...
I like Shinatsu's pose in the Gaku sort of figure. It's just a very amusing visual.
It's also a cool thing because we see the before and after of this shot from the same perspective. So what Nabe sees of all the Gakus is they're all like, what the hell is that? And then cutting to the real scene as Nabe is dashing between everyone, slashing through them, and gets a hit on everyone except Gero and Shinatsu and what's his face?
Kirito!
Because fortunately Shinatsu is a great protector and she blocks everyone with her police stuff.
It is legitimately in an arc that has not felt very cool for Shinatsu. A cool moment for her. It's not like the spotlight, but she saves everyone there basically.
Right. And of course everyone's like, holy shit, this guy is a freaking monster. And Kirito's like, I should call for backup because, things are bad. But as he calls in, he is undone, Quinn, by the worst and most nefarious thing someone snipped the phone line who even has a landline these days? No one at this place has a cell phone? All right.
I guess.
So nobody picks up. He calls out to Nabe, trying to get her to wake up, and, swings his sword as he does so. That was a bad idea. Nabe makes him pay for it. Whack! And Kirito realizes, like, shit, I'm in big trouble. But Chinatsu is, again, on the scene. Her police tape wraps around Nabe and her blade, and Garo is also helping her to hold the tape down to hold Nabe back. Garo says, this is definitely a torment. I don't know what he means by that. That's a weird thing to say, even in this moment. Did I miss something about torments? Well, anyway. Nabe manages to get loose by doing some complicated dance that cuts through all the police tape, and then she dashes off into the woods past everyone, leaving behind all their defeating enemies. Kirito is still heavily wounded, and he's like, I gotta go and stop Nabe. But Junatsu says, look, no, you've got a hole in you right now, so hold on. But Kirito explains that the boundary between dream and reality has broken, because Nabe has been repeatedly fighting Gaku in her head, tempering herself for so long that she has finally surpassed him there. But it happened that at that moment, the clashing bloodlust from our fight reached her, triggering an awakening even though she was still in her trance. We would normally immediately notice the deviation and wake up, but a master's trance is indistinguishable from reality, which means that everything and everyone standing in her way, she sees as Gaku. And this includes fucking trees in her way, all have Gaku's face, which she cuts through. A mountain has Gaku's face, and she, the way that you do, you break mountains with your sword.
Smash it with the sword, yep.
So nothing is stopping Nabe. Leo's here now. He's training to be a Catboy in the mountains and
as you do. Nick, what are you talking about? You act like this is a weird thing. You've never gone to the mountains and just kind of trained to be a cat?
He says that he's doing this because he was useless during the lobster fight in the cooking arc. Okay, so then rocks fall on top of him.
Yeah, and he's dead. It's the end of that character. Sucks to suck, but no one's too upset.
I like how as this is happening, Garo says this could be disastrous. Ordinary people like Leo might get dragged into harm's way. And Shinatsu points out that, the village that Gaku-san lives in is not far from here. We've got to stop her. But Nabe's there, and she's like, I'm going to kill you, Gaku. And we cut to a house where Gaku is waiting, sitting in a chair for Nabe to arrive. And he says, I've waited so long for you.
Ooh.
So we're getting to it.
Hopefully, finally get there.
Yep, it's exciting. You know what else is exciting, Quinn?
What's that?
New Exorcist. It's
is it?
So exciting.
This is, by the standards of New Exorcist, still pretty dumb.
Chapter 92, Transfer Student. As Nui reflects on, oh man, Gakuro's hollow weapon, it sure laid an egg from its head yesterday. Okay. So Nui has no idea what the hell it is. It's even beyond her knowledge, but she knows it'll be crucial, so the egg needs to hatch. Well, you better start taking steps then, guys. Gakuro is walking around by himself. Suo shows up looking seductive? I don't know. She says, how is his arm? Gakuro's like, I got healed yesterday. Why didn't it get healed before that? You've been home for a long time before this. Whatever. She pats him on the shoulder and definitely doesn't cop a feel of his big biceps or nothing like that. And she's like, bye. And then Gakuro's like, okay. Goes to class, and Zeno is here, and Zeno's classmate is also here. And they say, Gakuro, did you hear we're getting a transfer student today? And she's a total babe. I swear to God, if this girl also pretends to be Gakuro's sister, not related by blood, Jesus. But Gakuru reflects like, nobody mentioned a new squad member. This is what this man's life has become, is that every time that somebody new shows up in the neighborhood, he's like, I guess that we're getting a new squad teammate. People just move here to join my squad.
I guess I work with them now. We're co-workers.
Shiroha shows up, and she actually greets Gakuro with a little smile. And random dude says, would you like to go out for tea with me later? And Zeno says, don't get greedy, you idiot. And it's like, I mean, yeah, she was not talking to you. She did not even say good morning to you. So, yeah. Then that happens, I guess. Teacher says they've got a new transfer student. Hey, wouldn't you know it? It's that girl we saw at the end of the last chapter. Her name is Ishu Raramine. And she says, oh, it's nice. And everyone's like, oh, man, she's really cute. Out of our league, though. And then she's really formal at first. And then she says, I guess I don't have to talk all formal anymore. Pleased to meet you. Woohoo. And everyone's like, I love her because all the people in this class are stupid. And someone says, do you have any hobbies? Okay. And she's like, I like soccer. And they're like, oh, my God, she's a tomboy. I guess.
I don't.
So,
do they like that? I can't tell based on their expressions because everyone's just kind of got like a static big thing. And I'm like, is that a positive or a negative?
It is absolutely a positive.
Is it? Okay.
Trust me, it's a positive.
Okay.
It is.
It's a positive, is what you're saying.
It's positive.
Okay.
Yes. One of them's clapping Quinn. Come on, clearly.
He's saying welcome. He might just be happy to have a new student.
This is how I say hello to people.
Yeah, dude, you never know that. Claps McGee. He's always clapping for people.
I mean, that's his name now, I guess, because I didn't know who his name was before.
Don't worry, he's going to show up a whole bunch, I assume.
Gakuro Shiroha whispers to him, saying, like, I feel faint traces of the Fujino family. She's probably an enemy. And then, so Aramine walks over to Gakuro and is like, hey, Gakuro, I love you. Go out with me. First thing. And it was like, what the fuck, Yajima? Every single girl.
This series can make itself so much better if, like, we saw that shot in, like, the next panel. You just saw, like, a knife fly past Gakuro's face or something. Like, these cookie kids should be infuriated. This classroom gets, like, one hot chick a month, and every single time they are down bad for Gakuro immediately.
And she's like, the teacher says, you can't sit next to him, because she asked to. And he's like, well, as long as his neighbor doesn't mind, right? And she looks at Shiroha. Can you trade seats with me? No. And I was like, good for you, Shiroha. Good for you.
Yeah.
All the classmates are still really upset, because of course they are. Suo happens to be passing by, and we get a little note that says, stopped by while carrying notebooks. Whose notebooks? Whose notebooks? I know that it's contrived so that she again, it just gets rival vision, but like, why don't give that level of detail? That's all.
It's interesting because you could have said nothing, and I would have just been like, nothing. All right, I guess Suo's here. Like, who fucking cares? This school has no rules. You just do whatever the fuck you want.
Right. It's like if there were a note that says like stopped by while thinking about the incident. What incident? What are you talking about? Yeah. Don't do that. Break time. During the break, Nue is meeting with Gakuro, and she says, here's a report on the Fujino estate's current situation, which was alluded to in a weird way 2 chapters ago. We get more detail on that now. She says, it's currently impossible to observe the estate. That was under investigation. Raisei has kept a top-level barrier over it all this time, and the investigation is stalled. What?
Sometimes, Nick, you just, like, look at something, you're like, I have no idea what that is. And technically I'm investigating it in a way. Like, I am trying to figure it out. I just have no idea. So they're accurate.
What is it preventing the estate from being observed? There's a bunch of mist surrounding it. What is special about the mist? It's impossible to observe.
It's pretty
the estate.
Special.
You can't observe the estate. It's under investigation, but the investigation is stalled. Okay.
But there is still an investigation.
There's no investigation. Nue brings up the transfer student.
This is when we find out every exorcist who's not one of the ones we know is just Nishida from fucking Boruto. They're just all like, it's a bunch of dudes sitting in bushes kind of staring at their cell phone, and one of them gets a phone call like, "Hey, news on the estate." And they're like, "What? Huh?
Oh.
No, still looks kind of misty." Click. And then they go right back to playing Game Boy.
Have you sensed any suspicious activity from it? No. Okay, great. Keep it up, Nishida.
Suspicious what now? I gotta get going.
I've got.
Then just immediately goes back to playing like Mega Man on the Game Boy or something like that.
Something really weird. It's like, yeah, I have my handheld Atari that I'm playing on right now.
He somehow has got a mobile version of the ColecoVision. You're like, I don't even understand. Like, you would have had to have made this yourself.
It's got that one Google console or something like that. Stadia, I think it was.
How dare you, Nick? We have so many great classic titles we could be dropping. One of them's got an N-Gage, one of them's got a Virtual Boy. There's so many great failure consoles to really just treasure.
Virtual Boy. So Nue impresses upon Kakuro that it's important, since clearly the transfer student is Raisei's agent, that they get information out of her when possible. Gakuro, I guess, calls Aramine to meet him on the roof, and she's like, "Oh, is this about my confession? That can totally wait. I mean, you don't even know me yet." And so Gakuro goes, "Who are you?"
Honestly, best moment Gakuro's had maybe this whole series. That's just like,
Gakuro takes a really hard turn into competence in this chapter, and it's such an off-putting look on it.
I'm like, it doesn't make sense. I know that like two girls, I guess, kind of said that I like you, but it is wild that that's all he needed, and he's like, "I've turned it all around. I'm actually super cool.
I can see the Matrix." So. She says, "I've been watching you. At first it was just casual. Even when your little sister broke your arm, you didn't give up. Even when people made fun of you and labeled you a dirty boy, you kept saving them." Just keeps on referencing all these different things, including things that it's like, how the hell do you know anything like that? And she says, "I know that you practice talking in front of the mirror every day." So it's like, all right, this could be a very off-putting sequence, but it's not, because everyone's expressions just look the exact same as everyone's always do. This could have been a horrifying sequence.
Yeah, because there's private details being included in there. Like, you talk to yourself in the mirror every morning. You're like, how do you see me looking myself in the mirror every morning? Like, it should be terrifying. But Gakuru's just like, what does this mean?
There is a very Gakuro detail as well, which is, one time a girl lost a game and I had to tell you she loved you as a penalty, and you still thought about like crazy before you gave her your answer. It's like, that's just your life, man, all the way through. Mm-hmm. And she's like, "You're my favorite," and then she declares, "Hollow weapon release," and they both vanish off the roof, and they're in a place. Look, there's a bed over there, but there's also a curtain, and they're in a courtyard outside.
Yeah, this is dynamically one of the more interesting locations. I don't know what room to call it. It is certainly a location, though.
So Aramine says that it took her years to make up this space. Also, she's dressed in like soul armor, which is very clearly like fetish wear, like modeled after a Shongsam.
Nick, so how can you dare say that?
Very easily. So,
yeah. Well, you are right. So, yeah, carry on.
Gakuro, with the most blank expression on his face, goes, "I knew it! You're a spirit!" No passion at all. Aramine just goes over, unprompted, starts hugging Gakuro and goes, "Yeah, I've always wanted to do this, but Raisei wouldn't let me. The operations made progress, though, so I finally got to come and see you. I've been watching you for ages, and you never caught on." So I guess she's just been, like, in the corner watching him like ceiling cat or something.
Yeah.
And so she says, "I'm glad that nobody else has snagged you. You just kept getting cooler and cooler, so I was worried that he wasn't going to be pathetic anymore and you would stop liking him." I don't know.
Gakuro's dad, who was like a captain, never sensed this fucking ghost hanging around this kid? Okay.
Oh no, actually, I take it back. It does make sense why she said she was worried he was getting cooler. It's because she was worried that another girl would like him. Which, yeah, fair point. So Gakuro says, "You're part of Raisei's group, aren't you? Tell me about the Fujino family." Armina keeps on saying, like, "Okay, but someone told me they loved me, and I'd like to face them sincerely, so I can return your feelings." And Armina is like, "What? I only looked away for like 2 days." Like, why'd you look away for 2 days? What were you doing? You've been watching this boy talk to himself in front of the mirror for years. What was so important that you had to not watch him? Whatever. So she says, like, I mean, come on, though. You're a coward about romance. So, you know, you can't be, like, feeling things towards another girl. And he's like, no, I'm not lying. Be spineless, Gakuro. Come on. Be an actual Gakuro. Fine. And then she just, like, leans in and kisses him. And she's like, ha-ha! Pins him down. I'll retrain you now. I'll make it so I'm the only one you can see, the only one you can think about. I'll do all sorts of things to you over and over for years and years. And again, this could have been a really creepy moment. Instead, it's just, like, trying to be sexy but failing. Like,
it could be also kind of funny, too, because she is just, like, be pathetic. Be a loser. Be a big spineless bitch, basically. And Gakuro's like, no.
No. Tell me about the Fujino family. And she just says, tell me you like me. Tell me, or I'll kiss you again. And Gakuro can't summon command energy because he's caught in her web. They're like in a cocoon from the outside. And so she's like cuddling him and stuff. And she's like, just listen, and then I'll tell. And Gakuro says, I guess I have no choice. And the egg starts to crack, and he has black energy swirling around him. And she says, this is a mission from Niue. I didn't go in unprepared. I came to get information out of you by taking advantage of your affection. You see, I'm not like Konohamaru. I know how to do that despite being a pathetic 15-year-old. It's just so... He knocks her away, and she's like, what the fuck? But I was absorbing his command energy. How did he break my restraints? And then Gakuro's looking down on her, and she's like, oh man. And she starts like getting all blushy because he gets assertive. And it gets honestly kind of creepy because like he like slaps his hand down next to her and says, I don't want to get rough. Tell me about the Fujino family. And she's like, ah! So, okay. This is... bleh.
What, Nick? So, you don't want the implication this girl's, like, kind of into getting treated like this?
Kinda. So, that's basically it. The egg is still starting to crack behind Gakuro, so it's not fully hatched yet. But, you know, he only just got a different power-up, so better get that new one. That's it.
The thing that, like, fundamentally doesn't work is that Gakuro doesn't actually come off any cooler in this chapter. So, like, the fact that she's like, oh my gosh, you're treating me so rough. I don't know what's going to happen. You're just like, I don't know. It's still Gakuro. Like, I don't think he's going to do anything untoward. Like, I don't think he's going to cut your head off or some shit like that. This dude's going to be like, please let me out. And like that's his firmness or whatever. Like you could just say no. Like make him have it, you know?
The only reason that this seduction tactic did not work on Gakuro is because this is the worst seductress I have ever seen in any manga ever.
Look, she took a shot. There are some people out there who love when somebody walks up to them like, you're a little bitch baby loser coward. I hope you grow less of a spine, you little pathetic worm. All right, now let's make out. Gakuro, unfortunately, I probably would have been that person a couple months ago, but unfortunately, he's had like 4 baddies like stomp into his life and like immediately try to fall over each other, get into him. So I don't know. Maybe it just doesn't work anymore. But
I have self-esteem now. It's too late.
I'm a much more mature and powerful individual. In fact, the Gakuro you know is dead. My voice has shifted into something different. I'm tougher now. I'm more powerful.
Listen to how masculine and husky I sound.
The reverberations of my voice will send shivers down your spine.
Here, let me demonstrate. How you doing, baby?
I wish I could crack my voice on command. That's how I feel the Gakuro tone really should be.
Oh boy. All right, everybody. It's Akane-banashi time, story 152, His Intent. Oh boy. Master Hasho comes over to Akane, who has been tasked with timing Shomei's performance. And he says, like, here, I got this from Shomei years ago. You should examine it as he performs. So she looks at it and she says, what is this? And Hasho says, a picture is worth 1,000 words. The first thing you should do is closely examine his performance to understand his true reasoning for refusing to train you. Shohei goes straight into his story. There's like no preamble at all to it. He's just like, this is the story I'm going to tell. It's got a number of meanings in its title, Shiwai. And so he just goes into it, and it's a conversation between two people about a fan, specifically two cheapskates. And so one of them says, like, I figure that I can get 2 years out of it. And I know that, like, most people would say that a single summer will wear out a fan, but I'll just open the fan halfway, use only half the fan for a year, and then flip to using the other half. Smart thinking, right? And the other person says, like, let me see this. You see, fans are designed to be unfolded all the way. If you only do it halfway, you're actually going to damage the fan more. So you have to open the fan completely. Then hold it upright in front of your face and don't move the fan itself. And then move your face really fast in front of it. That's such a good joke.
It is very funny, yeah.
And he says, like, if you wave your face into the fan will last 10 years. And the guy's like, I don't know, that seems excessive. So, we are told that this is, a story of two cheapskates exchanging anecdotes. And it's just like a series of, like, things like that one after another.
Yes.
As the performance is going on, we see these lines framing Shomei that kind of connect down into each other like they're dripping into each other. As, a clock ticking back and forth, basically, that kind of refrain. And the style that he has is like purely orthodox, and then it's contrasted with these ridiculous things that he's doing. It's pardon me. It is, like we were saying, it's like an extreme version of, Kyoji's thing, be very, very serious in order for the humor to stand out. But with him, it's be very, very proper for the ridiculousness to stand out. So he does another joke like that, and we are told that Shomei is the Rakugo world's premier comedian. Yeah, this dude with the watch, who's just like, no, customs. He's very funny, actually.
Most of the funniest people you'll ever meet are actually completely boring people. Actually, that's not true. It's the exact opposite, usually.
Akane is, quietly, like, going back and forth between the watch and the phone. And as she is going over it, she goes, 22. She's counting along. And it gets to a point of, like, okay, 10. And Shomei is like, I haven't gone to bed. I don't keep the lights on after dark. It's wasteful expenditure. And then someone goes, are you naked? Why, yes. When it's so dark, you can't see me anyway, so it'd be a waste to wear my kimono and wear it out. Akane observes all this, and it gets to, like, the clock reaching, like, 0 seconds. And she looks at Hasho and says, I think I get it. His true nature is a craftsman. He's precise. He's got a perfected script that he performs to exacting standards. And that while that's being said, Tyson says, like, wait, while he's getting all those laughs? And Hasho says, laughter is a fickle thing. Whether you get a burst of laughter or not depends on the audience. And that's why the key to humorous kokebanashi is having the flexibility to read the room and adjust accordingly. So having a script perfectly set in stone is a drawback, if anything. No one would ever choose to have everything proceed exactly as planned, according to Shome's principles. But Akane hands the phone back to Tyson, and there is everything diagrammed out, including big laugh at 1 minute 34 seconds, big laugh at 2 minutes 4 seconds.
I don't want to brag, Nick, but this is what I tend to do with Weekly Manga Recap as well. I actually have, you can't see it right now, but it is here on my phone, the entirety of this podcast. And in fact, this explanation is in the podcast as well. Big laugh. 2, 3, 4. Rene Dupree. That was in there as well. Another law resistance callback. Big laugh. 3, 4. Carry on.
It's going to be crazy when I have to have surgery in a few years and I just find the microchip you implanted in my brain to perfectly control both sides of the conversation at any time.
You think that I would control your brain, Nick? No. I know the much stronger way to control a man. There's a spider in your stomach. Like a robot spider. It has a bunch of levers that it just pulls.
Inside of all of us, there is a spider. Oh, Hasho goes on to explain that Shome has such an exacting perspective and attention to detail that no audience can disturb the stillness of his heart. He only performs a perfect version of his craft, the masterpiece of the Subakiya school, the clockwork logician, Shome Subakiya. And he gets a big old 2-page awesome spread.
Yeah, this dude rules. I don't know what to tell you. He's cool. He does cool things.
You know who else does cool things, Quinn?
I was gonna say the entirety of the Straw Hat Pirate crew, I guess.
Pretty much.
Yeah, Nick. It is One Piece chapter 1144. A Time for Warriors. Cover spread is Minatomo and the girls have been freed by Yamato. I assume we'll find out what happens to page 1 and Ulti in the next one. I had to explain to someone recently how Minatomo is a joke character Oda came up with to explain why a door was back on its hinges back in like fucking chapter 1 after it was kicked off. And I was like, he's canon now. Luffy and the crew have interacted with him, I'm pretty sure. He exists. Like, that's just the way Oda writes his stories.
And again, Yamato, very tall.
Yeah. I always forget how fucking humongous he is. Like, Jesus. So we open the chapter with Frankie and Ripley looking at a fantastic sight as Frankie is going, "Whoa, what is this?" And Ripley goes, what do you think it is? Because we don't know. And we see, it's tough to really call it an impressive structure because it's so overgrown with like different plant life at this point. But it's been noted that this place has been here for ages. And Ripley thought a mechanical man like you would enjoy it more than everyone else. Guess who's there, Nick? It's Lilith and Bonnie. They're also
nice
there.
To see them. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, "Hey, Frankie, we're glad you found this place. We were going to tell you." And Frankie's like, "Why are you guys here?" And Lilith's like, "We got lost." But Lilith also points out this place is really incredible. This building has stood here for at least 3 millennia. Important amount of time for there to be a structure here of that length. So, Ripley just notes, yeah, I can't say she's wrong. Even in Elbaph, we have no idea what this building was ever used for. So Frankie's like, all right, cool. I'll go check out inside of this place, basically. But Bonnie screams, basically. She has like a very exaggerated reaction. And behind our heroes is lightning, the children's imagination of lightning, what one child said they were afraid of. It's crawling up behind him, and Frankie has a great expression and line where he goes, "Oh, Elbaph, land of mystery and wonder." And then Ripley's like, "Nah, this ain't our shit.
No, this is very unusual.
This is not our shit. We don't have these." Cut over, the Drugar is also over there fighting something. There's a good little joke where Brooke is like, that looks awfully familiar. Is that an enormous me?
How unflattering. He's like, I'm scared of you.
Colin tries to beseech the Giants to let him fight, and they're like, no, you cannot fight. And he's like, but I'm the son of Gabon. They're like, exactly, you're not Gabon. Get out of here. The crew takes this opportunity to finally tell Chief Ja Rule about what was going on inside of the chamber, inside that castle. So now he is caught up to it, and he's like, an intruder who looks like red hair. And they're like, yeah, one of them used strange powers. And I do love that Jinbei just comes in, he's like, usually in this world, if there's weird shit going on, it's Devil Fruit users, so probably those people who are behind what's going on here. So they're like, all right, well, we're going to do that. Tell them that 2 people not affiliated with the Straw Hat crew here. And they're like, well, actually, it could be more. More than 2 people are here. Nami is like, all right, well, we got to go help them. However, the Giants are kind of like, no, like, you guys just chill, basically. You're our guests. This isn't your thing. Jinbei notes, though, he's like, you know, if the targets are human-sized, then, like, we're going to have an easier time looking for them. And Nami looks over, and they're like, just if we only had a boat. She sees Colin going and dragging, like, a big bag of supplies onto a boat. And we just see the conversation, like, as it happens. And he's like, oh, you're not going to stop me, and actually you want to go along with me? Okay, but I'm the captain. And
so cute.
Nami's just like, this kid's fucking adorable. So they go off, and he's like, let's go, Colin Pirates. And they're like, hey, fuckface, you're the biggest one here. Can you fucking row?
He doesn't care. He's too busy being a pirate captain. It's very cute.
Yes. Cut over to Gunk. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to say, like, that moment where Ja Rule says to the Straw Hats, like, no, you're our guest. Stay in hiding. I'm suspicious of everything this guy does. Him and his beard that hides everything. So I wonder if there's something going on, why he told them to do that.
Very possible. It might also be a respect thing of just like, you've saved us. We're not going to like make you get involved in this. But yeah, we'll just see. Cut over to Gunko, who is listening to some sweet tunes on her sweet headphones. While the message basically is broadcast that's like, hey, there are intruders here going around right now. Summers notes, oh, TDs? Well, I prefer listening to a live musical performance. And whoever flubs a note first, bang! Ha ha ha. It is noted.
All right, you insane man.
Yeah, dude's just kind of a weird little freak. And it's noted that this is Gunko's post-meal ritual, but she notes, it's not a ritual, I just like doing it. And he's like, oh, but it's nice to have a hobby you can carry around with you. What's the song you like so much? And she just responds, New World, which I was informed today is one of Brooke's songs. So she's listening to the Soul King Brooke. Notable that she might encounter him in this arc. And Summers, a complete asshole, is like, what, you got a problem with the world you already live in? And Killingham has to be like, don't make fun of what other people like, Summers.
just has a very brief moment where he's just a real one like that.
Yeah. He's like,
don't be an asshole, dude.
He's like, shut the fuck up if you're just gonna yuck someone's yum. Like,
I know the 3 of us are working together to kidnap children, but don't be an asshole, dude.
It's very funny if you go and listen to the New World song and imagine that's what Gunko's jamming out to as he actively kidnaps children. Cut over to Saul, who has grabbed a couple of bucklers and is like, all right, this time I'm going to stop them cold because I won't touch them. And he places it in front of the first child, and she stops. He's like, oh, this is great. But the next child walks into her. Both of them activate their thorns and hurt each other. And he's like, oh my God, this is awful. This is so sadistic. Like, these kids will just hurt each other if we try to stop them. So he's like, all right, I've got an idea. He takes out a rope. He lassos it around the last kid, and he starts to pull them away. And he's like, all right, I got this one free from the line. And I feel like if we just peel them off one by one, but then he looks to the side, it's Fenrir, who is not going to let them just do this. And he's like, what is this? Are they all working together somehow?
I love Saul so much in the last couple of chapters, where he's just doing everything he can to save these kids, basically by himself too.
Yeah, like there's not really another option. These kids are too big for like the Straw Hats to really even interact with besides punching them.
Right.
So there is notes that like all this stuff is kind of going on all over the place, and a bunch of giants managed to defeat the Duergar, but they're like, oh shit, there's more of them. And it's noted that Dory and Bragi earlier were gone because they were in the bathroom puking up all of the beer that they drank. But with these two new enemies, the Nidhagar and the Ghost, they is a moment of like, it's our turn, Dory. Indeed, Bragi. And we get sort of that 1.5 page double attack spread ripping straight through I forget what its fucking name is. I know I mispronounce it every time, but I'm just gonna call it. I'm gonna call it Nidhogger. Nidoran, male in this case, because you do have to specify 2 separate Pokemon. And which is kind of fucked up when you think about it. I know we're so close to the end, Nick, but like it is wild. Nowadays, you can get gender differences in Pokemon that are completely like different forms, but they're still the same Pokemon number in the Pokedex.
There was an entire generation where those were the only 2 Pokemon that had a sex to them. It was not a thing until the 2nd generation and onward, where that was noted on like every single Pokemon if they were male, female, or neither.
No, except for Ninetales. That is definitely a woman. You could tell, Nick.
Hang on, I'm gonna look up the gender ratio of Ninetales. I think that it's mostly female, but
I have no idea, honestly.
Continue.
Yeah, basically they do their little big attack. It's noted the Great Eric is here, and now they're all gonna get it, you monsters. And hey, guess who's also there? It's Mr. Ya, aka Scooper Gaban. So, things aren't looking super bad, but they're not looking good.
Now that the competent people are at work, yeah.
3-1,
by the way.
Ninja is right, Mr. Mime. Although I do believe you can have female Mr. Mimes.
You can.
Yeah. Which is fine.
Or at least
honestly,
I think Sabrina does.
You know, kind of inclusive when you think about it. But that is it for One Piece. It's a good little chapter.
Mr. Mime is 50-50.
Makes sense. All right, Nick. What were your favorite series and MVP this week? Or did you have any thoughts on One Piece you wanted to share?
Not really. There were nice little moments in it. I'm curious, like you are, about the thing with Gunko listening to New World. It'll be interesting to see if she has an interaction with Brooke and how that would play out. Gunko has grown kind of like increasingly interesting since she got paired with these two, because it seemed like she was really trying hard to be like an asshole, and now she seems like the most sane normal out of these 3. Which is interesting.
Yeah.
And we keep on getting these little hints of like, there's a person under here, which I wonder if there's going to be any sort of form of payoff for. She's an attractive female character, so probably. But beyond that, I like the moment where Colin is just like, "We're going on an adventure, and I am the captain." That's very cute. And I like Saul being a cool hero guy, and that's about it. My favorite series this week, I would say, was Chainsaw Man. It feels like it's not a super eventful chapter on its own, but the reveal got me more excited than I think anything else this week. So I have to give it to the nod for that reason, because it actually, like, going into our discussion today, that was the thing that was definitely most on my mind out of this past week of chapters.
I think, man, it's going to be easier for me to do MVP, so I'm just going to do that now. I'm going to do Showman. I need to think on chapter of the week.
Gotcha. For my MVP, I am going to go with, I'm going to go with Gokuraku. It was nice to see, a more serious side to him, and I really liked where he just, cut through the bullshit and noted like, hey, Bakugami does not make people stop being sad. He just takes away their ability to be sad, and how angry that made him. It's nice.
As I look through everything and I think back on all the chapters, I think I will agree, and I'm gonna pick Ichi the Witch. I don't think anything like stood out like crazy good, but I do think Ichi the Witch has me definitely excited for next chapter a lot, and that's, a pretty good sign. I also do want to give credit to Chainsaw Man, but I don't know. Even though the twist was super good, I'm also still like mentally thinking how it's gonna. I don't know. It feels like Chainsaw Man chapters are often very short, and they often end in these weird ways. So like, I don't know. It's one of those things I'm like still thinking about. I'm like, did I love that chapter, or did I just appreciate that there was like a cool twist to recontextualize things?
I get you.
The audience, by the way, picked Ichi the Witch as the chapter of the week and Shomei from Akane-banashi as the character of the week.
Good choices. So,
yeah.
All right, everybody. That is it for Weekly Manga Recap this week. Thank you all for joining us. We will be back next week. Same place, twitch.tv/RoloT. Same time, Wednesday around 7:30 Eastern in the evening. And we'll talk about some more manga. Hopefully we'll be ready to do Yozakura finally by then, but we'll see. We have so many places that you can check out more Weekly Manga Recap. There's weeklymangarecap.podbean.com if you just want the audio versions of the podcast. Those also get posted on iTunes and Spotify, the podcast feed type places. You can also check out the video version on YouTube, youtube.com/Weekly Manga Recap, which will also feature an opening sequence by Mila Jack Stillitz and Wednesday Cheddar. Thank you guys for that. And also occasionally title cards by Steve Mann, whose artwork you can check out by just searching for Steve Mann art online. It'll be posted in numerous different places. We have a Google Doc maintained by Ninja X3i that keeps track of all sorts of things associated with the history of the show, MVP and favorite series voting. You can follow WMAR Votes on social media for updates on that stuff. And also be sure to follow your hosts on social media: BlueSky, Nick F. Time, RoloT, Weekly Manga Recap. We also have a Discord server, which will be linked wherever this episode is posted. You can check that out. Join up with our community, have conversations about the chapters as they get posted, just have the usual hangout kind of stuff as well. And you can find the Google Doc through that as well. And lastly, we have a Patreon if you would like to financially support the show, patreon.com/Weekly Manga Recap, where Quinn has started uploading our backlog of bonus episodes from recent recordings that we have done. There was an X-Men conversation that we had that I think was the first one that went up.
Yeah, I explained the New Mutants to Nick and how they are a much older concept than I thought, and how they're kind of weird and trippy. So if you want to listen to that, you can find it there. And then there are going to be others. Probably by the time you listen to this, there might even be another one out. This is where you explain the show Wednesday to me using manga, I believe.
Yep, that was an Explained by Manga. Yes. That is on patreon.com/Weekly Manga Recap if you want to listen to those bonus episodes and also help to financially support the show. And I think that that's about everything. So we want to thank you guys again for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, right here. Don't move. In fact, I'm telling you not to move. I'm channeling some of Gakuro's dominant energy, and I'm gonna be like, now don't you move! You stay right there!
If you move even a single inch, sorry.
I think it would be interesting to see a Dom with that kind of voice try to like give you commands like, get on your knees, open your mouth. You're like, all right, calm down, dude.
Just like no matter who he tries to do it with, they immediately like put the hand on the shoulder. All right, so
look, I understand what you're going for here. Your voice can't possibly sound naturally like this, right?
Or else it gets the hose again.
Oh, well, that was just abuse, to be clear. That's not
actually, like, even if you'd had to have the voice for it, that wouldn't be, like, yeah. I mean, some people might be into it, but generally speaking, that's not how it goes.
There's some people who want to get the hose again. I don't doubt it, but... All right. Bye, everybody.